In the heart of downtown, where the air buzzes with laughter and the lively chatter of travelers, daily life pulses through busy streets. Adventurers and thrill-seekers stride purposefully through the crowds. Amidst this colorful chaos stands Red Dixon, a young man with jet-black hair, recognized throughout the area as a member of the guild known as the Black Wolves, a reputable team among the rank C adventurers. At 25, he left the royal capital behind, yearning to discover a new purpose as an adventurer in a distant city. 5 years had slipped away since then. Now 30, he remained an F rank, his progress stunted. One day, a local merchant offered to buy his fresh vegetables, yet pressing matters demanded that he move on without delay. The young man glances thoughtfully to the side and suddenly catches sight of something intriguing. Although not renowned for his combat prowess, his focus sharpens at once, captivated by this unexpected discovery. A little girl stumbled to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks as the pain in her knees set in. 2 children turned back and noticed her trailing behind, just as she often did, and now she had fallen. They suggested she wait for a moment, promising to call for help and return quickly. A flicker of confusion crossed the boy's gaze as the realization hit him that the girl had fallen. Moving closer with careful steps, he settled beside her and, offering a gentle smile, kindly asked if he could see her knees. Surprised and with tears still glimmering in her eyes, the girl glanced up at the young man before quietly agreeing. His hand brushed her knee as he began to heal her. A surprised smile spread across her face when the pain vanished without a trace, leaving her delighted. The stranger lifted a finger to his lips, let out a quiet chuckle, and winked before whispering a request for the girl to keep everything a secret. Joy radiated from her as she nodded in agreement. Gifted with rare abilities and restoration magic, the young man stood apart from the rest. The girl, beaming with gratitude, thanked her uncle as she bid him farewell, and he waved back in response. As the boy weaves his way through the bustling street crowded with passers-by, he discreetly unzips his waist bag, thirst gnawing at him. Inside a small pouch, his fingers find a bottle, which he quickly pulls out to take a drink. Unsettling thoughts swirl about why Jill suddenly invited him to the bar without including Aisha. Perhaps she wants to discuss his recent promotion to B rank in the guild. Lost in contemplation, he continues walking down the street without breaking his stride. After some time passes, a young man named Jill, leader of the Black Wolves Guild, steps into the path of the protagonist. With an easy smile, he settles himself behind the bar and calmly addresses Red, suggesting that Red leave this job to him. Gill's smile fades, uncertainty clouding his expression, as he asks again what exactly is so strange about the situation, clearly unsettled by Red's response. Despite a conscious effort to maintain politeness and avoid offending him, Gill gestures firmly toward the young man standing before him and announces in a stern tone that he is dismissed. Rising to her feet, Rita marveled at how suddenly everything had changed. Gill replied calmly, explaining that for their Black Wolves Guild, this was no surprise at all. They had worked hard for a long time to advance from C rank to B rank. The events that had just unfolded seemed almost impossible to believe. Questions lingered in the boy's eyes, silently searching for clarity. Did he truly hear those words, and what could they mean? Confusion clouded his thoughts, making the world around him feel distant and unreal. The guildmaster offers some straightforward advice, urging the group to start making their own decisions. Relying too much on ballast, he says, will only hold everyone back. Red asks whether there's at least a possibility for Ballast to remain as an assistant. Jill's patience finally snaps. She slams her cup onto the table, sending her drink spilling across the surface. Eyes blazing with intensity, she locks her gaze on the young man and asks if he realizes how much effort they have poured into themselves since their early 20s, just as he has. She explains that when it comes to genuinely helping others, ranks and titles hold no meaning, so it is better to simply leave in silence. All the equipment he had received before is now returned to him. Red's reaction betrays his surprise, but Jill quickly offers an explanation. Whenever someone advances to a higher rank, the guilds collect the old equipment and pass it down to new recruits. He won't have any use for those items in upcoming trials. Redaha halts, his raised hand signaling a pause. He admits there is nothing he can do as a hero, glancing over at Jill. In response, Jill flashes a wide grin and playfully asks once more, "What hero are you talking about?" Disgust etched across their face, the explanation is firm. A life like that holds no interest. Returning home to work their own land is far better. Startled by the unexpected news, Rita shoots to her feet and slams her hand against the table. Only then does she press her palm to her chest and release a shaky breath. Parting ways with Gil, a sharp remark echoed back. Red meant nothing to him, a color stripped of all value. With laughter bubbling and a glass in hand, the former guildmaster remains unfazed, even as the young man departs from the guild. On the contrary, his confident voice rings out even louder, proclaiming that now the team is certain to reach rank B. Laughter still echoes from Gil, and grateful farewells with hopes of another visit linger in the air long after the sullen young man exits the bar. Red wanders through the city's night-shrouded streets, lost in the depths of his own thoughts. During the meeting, the girl recognizes the stranger and addresses him directly, catching the boy completely off guard. Seeing Linda there was the last thing he expected. Their eyes meet, and a palpable tension hangs in the air between them. Surprise flickers across Linda's eyes as she struggles to contain her astonishment and asks if he truly intends to leave the Adventurers Guild. In the middle of the bustling street, Linda turns to the young man and earnestly asks if he truly has given up the life of an adventurer and can no longer earn money that way. When he quietly confirms it, a visible change washes over Linda's face. Mockery flickers in her eyes as she regards him with detached superiority, declaring in a chilling tone that she no longer needs him and that their relationship has come to an end. An overwhelming sense of disbelief seizes the boy. Struggling to comprehend what he has just heard, he asks how this could be. Are they truly parting ways? The girl simply shakes her head and hurls cutting words in his direction. With a flick of her hair, she declares that an empty pocket means there's no point hoping for her attention, as wasting time on such a boy leads nowhere. Astonishment flickers across the boy's face, struggling to comprehend the transformation she has undergone. Such thoughts were once foreign to her. Every action, every step he took, always revolved around her. At last, his voice edged with pain, he summons the courage to ask if this relationship truly meant nothing to her beyond the money. Linda, her face lit by a confident smile, declared that only wealthy men stood a chance with a beauty like her. Meanwhile, Reed admitted he simply wanted to support her, knowing she owed money to her parents. Laughter rang out from her, genuine and bright, before she paused to ask once more if he truly believed it. Only after that sudden shift to seriousness did she reveal that she had not seen her parents in many years. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. The girl had deceived him. Unable to hold back, he asked her why she had done it. Linda stepped closer to the boy, met his eyes, and declared with conviction that, of course, everything revolves around money. Turning around, she waved in Red's direction, signaling her farewell and casually announcing she had a date. Stunned, the boy couldn't help but ask who she was meeting. A gentle smile played on her lips as she explained her destination. She was headed to someone with money. Someone who, unlike this boy, also craved adventure. Red quickly tried to call her back, but she didn't spare him a glance. Without pause, she calmly requested that he not speak to her again. The young man lingered in place, calling out to her several more times, while she continued walking away without once looking back. Lowering his head, he turned around and walked off as well, disappointment weighing heavily on his shoulders. Morning unfolds beneath the lofty sun, its rays flooding Red's room with gentle brightness as birds glide past his window. On the floor, empty glass bottles rest, clinking quietly against each other, their contents long since spilled and absorbed by the floorboards. Uncertain eyes flickered open, uncertain whether morning had finally arrived. Perched on the edge of the bed, a trembling hand pressed against a throbbing temple. The gaze swept briefly across the familiar sight of empty bottles scattered nearby. Bit by bit, memories of the previous day began to resurface. Faces from the past come into view. Guild leader Gil and Linda, his former love, both flashing those familiar, mocking blonde smiles. Yet even surrounded by chaos, a quiet smile forms on his lips, Amid it all, he wonders at the strange strength that allows him to laugh at himself. Gathering his resolve, the young man slapped his cheeks to fully wake himself. Peeling off his t-shirt, he headed to the shower, determined to refresh and tackle the job hunt with renewed energy. In the very heart of the royal capital, near the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild, a hero clad in healer's robes sets out in search of a quest worthy of his abilities. A faint sense of unease lingered in the air when, out of nowhere, a voice called from behind Red, declaring, "We've been waiting for you." Turning to face the sound, Red saw a woman greeting him with a warm and welcoming smile. Glancing back, the boy recognizes Sira. She greets him with a warm smile, invites him to enter through the back door, and politely suggests he share his story. Without hesitation, the boy agrees. At the guild's capital branch table, Sira, a staff member from the main office, suddenly froze. Her bewildered shake of the head betrayed her struggle to grasp how Gel could have made such an absurd blunder. The words she overheard unsettled her completely, leaving her visibly astonished. Unwavering certainty radiates from her words, leaving no room for doubt. She is convinced that Jill is mistaken, and the guild will undoubtedly accept Red. Furthermore, without warning, she suggests promoting the Black Wolves to rank B. The announcement takes Red completely by surprise. Sir attributes everything to Red's humble nature and simple ways. A traveler gifted with healing magic, always prepared with an assortment of useful items tucked away for any occasion. The boy brushes it off as unimportant and wonders aloud if restoration magic might handle the problem on its own. In his view, the bag serves no other purpose than carrying items. Sira responds with an exasperated sigh, lowering her head in frustration. As clarity sets in, she confesses her genuine wish to treat Rita kindly and regrets how poorly others acted toward him. According to the staff member, if it weren't for the constant trouble with the Black Wolves Guild, this adventurer's rank would have risen long ago. Redu, however, simply dismisses such talk, brushing it off as complete nonsense. Losing her composure, Sierra leaps to her feet and declares that the young man has no appreciation for his own worth. The modest youth simply shrugs and quietly admits that he came to the guild today to look for a new job anyway. A wave of surprise swept over Sierra as she apologized for her helplessness, her voice uncertain. Despite her worries, she resolved to offer whatever assistance she could. With careful hands, she spread the announcements across the table, selecting those that mentioned a search for a healer and neatly placing each sheet in front of the young man. In the young man's hands rested a completed form, an official document declaring that Count Rodenwald from the city of Amert was seeking new settlers. A wave of surprise washes over him, prompting him to approach the employee with a question. Offering an apology, she explains that the notice was actually meant for recruiting new immigrants, but there had been yet another mix-up. Dreams of Amorta, the city nestled near the royal capital, drift, read into memories of his departure from his homeland when he set out to carve a new life among the grand avenues of the capital. To Sierra's astonishment, he suddenly points to the notice and declares his intention to head to Amert. The camp stretched out along the city's edge, swallowed by the thick darkness of night. Near the fire, logs crackled and sent flickering shadows dancing across the young man's face as he settled on a large boulder. Reda sipped his steaming drink with care, noticing that even with spring just around the corner, the night air clung to its chill, unwilling to surrender its grasp. Memories return of Sarah's tireless efforts to keep him by her side. She provided him with a letter of recommendation to the Amerta Guild, drawing on her friendship with someone at the local branch. She even arranged for members of Amurta to accompany the young man for part of his journey. Rita slipped her hand carefully into the bag of belongings, already picturing herself preparing a tender, juicy slice of beef for dinner later that evening. A smile lit up his face when his eyes settled on the fresh meat, safe from spoilage thanks to the magical bag. Next came butter, milk, crisp vegetables, salt, pepper, and fragrant bread, all laid out with care. Everything needed for a delicious dinner was now within reach. The frying pan hovered above the fire, where raw slices of meat began to sizzle in the heat. Night concealed everything except the star-filled sky, while the distant call of an owl echoed nearby. The young man's eyes widened in surprise as he called out, asking if anyone else was present. Behind a large stone, he caught sight of a girl attempting to stay hidden. Turning toward her, his voice turned stern as he demanded to know who she was and ordered her to step out from her hiding place. Bare feet barely making a sound on the stones, arms held tightly to her chest, she emerged from the shadows and startled the red-haired girl with her sudden arrival. Bathed in moonlight, the figure of a girl emerged, her eyes dull and lifeless, her clothes worn and stained with dirt. The bag was locked shut, and in that moment, an unexpected sight appeared. A little girl in tattered rags stood before Rito. Her appearance stirred a mix of curiosity and concern within him. Hoping to find out if any adults were nearby, Rito gently asked about her mother or father. The girl only shook her head in silent denial. An extraordinary sight unfolded along the lonely path. There, in the heart of the untamed wilderness, a little girl stood alone. Disbelief lingered in the young man's mind, yet he repeated his question, asking if she felt hungry or wished to join her uncle for a meal. Silence was the only reply the wind carried back to him. A warm smile spread across Red's face as he beckoned her closer with a gentle motion. He asked if the cold had gotten to her and admitted that the solitude weighed heavily on him. With hopeful eyes, he suggested they share dinner together that evening. Beneath the scatter of twinkling stars, the girl cast a nervous glance at the boy, her stomach grumbling quietly in protest. Hesitant and barely making a sound with each step, she slowly moved closer to Red by the camp. Wrapped snugly in the cloak the young man had given her, the girl ate in silence, drawing warmth from the crackling fire. Nearby, the young man prepared their meal with care, slicing meat in the pan and suspecting his guest had probably not eaten for quite some time. The girl's stomach continued to rumble even after she had eaten, drawing the boy's attention. Their eyes met unexpectedly. With a gentle smile, Red offered her a piece of meat, assuring her there would always be some set aside just for her, since he had saved this piece especially. Surprised, the girl glanced at him, her spoon frozen mid-air. Once the plates were empty and set aside, the girl offered a timid word of thanks for the meal. A genuine smile lit up the boy's face as he replied warmly that visitors were always welcome in his home. As the meal drew to a close, Reda quietly introduced himself to the girl, describing himself as something of an adventurer. With gentle caution, he took the seat across from her. Introducing herself with quiet confidence, the girl said her name was Mina. Meeting his gaze, she sat down beside him, the gifted cloak folded in her hands. A spark of life flickered in her eyes, hinting at a newfound warmth. The question of whether she had a home or somewhere to go lingered in the silence. Mina simply shook her head. The boy paused in thought, resting his hand on his chin and narrowing his eyes. After meeting the girl's gaze, he offered a suggestion. If she had nowhere else to stay, she could come along with him. Rita tossed another log onto the fire and calmly announced that her next destination would be the city of Amert. However, before reaching it, she needed to visit a small town along the way. With quiet curiosity, the girl asked if this was really true, and a genuine smile spreading across Rita's face served as her answer. His gaze lingered on her legs, marked by bruises and scratches. With genuine curiosity, he asked if she was in pain, quickly offering to heal the wounds if she allowed him to touch them. Mina, noticing his interest, promptly pointed out that he did not have any medicine. Settling beside her, the young man gently took hold of her legs and, with a teasing smile, remarked that he could manage even without them. Murmuring the words of healing, he initiated the restoration, and a dazzling light enveloped her wounds, gradually returning health and strength to her. A look of pleasant surprise lit up Mina's face as she realized the pain in her legs had vanished. The news burst from her lips as she gazed down, unable to hide her delight. Brimming with newfound energy, she offered the boy heartfelt thanks, though a brief pause betrayed her struggle to recall his name. With an easy smile, Reda stepped in, gently reminding her of his name. Happiness radiated from her smile, and words of gratitude now came from her lips. He then offered Mina some tea with honey to warm her up. Soon the two settled together in the cramped tent under a single blanket, preparing for sleep. The following day, the wooden cart rumbled steadily along the road. Mina felt grateful for meeting someone as kind as Red, and discovered that he was even more delighted by their encounter. Meanwhile, the driver glanced back at the boy and shared some welcome news. The village was already visible in the distance. From the hilltop, the village of Morelia comes into view, its wide streets and wooden houses spreading out in a picturesque scene. The winding road guided Red and Mina to a humble village tavern, where grateful travelers exchanged warmth and gratitude with their hosts. Standing before the weathered doors, a lively old man approached, laughter twinkling in his eyes, as he wondered aloud what might bring a father and daughter to such a forgotten corner of the world. The elderly man introduced himself as Morelia, mayor of this small town. Responding out of politeness, the boy offered his own name. He quickly added that his stay would only last a few days and insisted he didn't wish to owe his host anything, all while shaking his hand. Roz accepted the sentiment with understanding. The mayor's eyes fix on the girl's appearance, noting her dirt-stained legs and the tangled hair clinging to them. He gently inquires if she might have accidentally stepped into some mud, offering reassurance that everything would be resolved. The man suggested taking a bath at a nearby hotel, and then following the road to a shop where new clothes and shoes awaited. His daughter managed the hotel, while the shop belonged to a kind-hearted grandmother. Grateful for their care, the young man expressed his heartfelt thanks. With a sly wink and genuine laughter, the old man assured that although the town appeared small, its residents overflowed with warmth, and the food was nothing short of delicious. Comfort and peace could always be found here. After a while, the mayor's daughter, who had been tidying up, approached and greeted the guests at the Sparrow Feather Inn with a warm smile. Rita and Mina immediately expressed their wish to stay the night. Casting a quick glance at the girl, the owner reminded them that they needed to have a bath before anything else. Swinging open the shoe cabinet, the mayor's daughter offered a bright smile as she spoke. Room 201 awaited on the second floor, and for a handful of silver coins, lodging with meals included was available. With the boots in hand, she approaches the guests and holds out a pair of shoes to Red, firmly insisting that venturing to the store barefoot is not an option. She promises to lend him the footwear after he finishes his bath, so that afterward, he and her daughter can head out shopping together. Gratitude shone in Red's eyes as Mina, a bit shy, joined him in thanking the little girl. After Mina carefully slid down from his shoulders, Red gently asked if she would like to take a bath. With a soft smile, Mina agreed. At one point, Retta lifts her gaze, her eyes settling thoughtfully on Mina as she quietly asks if she prefers to bathe alone. Mina averts her eyes in embarrassment and hurriedly declares that she is no longer a little girl. The young woman made her way to the bathroom and carefully removed her clothes, folding each item neatly into the basket tucked inside the cabinet. The door eased open with barely a sound as the girl slipped into the bathroom. Delight blossomed across her face when she admitted how long it had been since she last savored the comfort of a steaming bath. Grasping the brush, Mina carefully scrubbed her back, then rinsed off with cool water. With all thoughts of cleanliness behind her, she eased herself into the tub and gradually relaxed, letting the water soothe her body. As she glanced at her palm, a wave of reflection washed over her. Together with her father, they truly appeared as daughter and dad, a thought that stirred a touch of embarrassment and left her feeling somewhat uneasy. Fresh from her bath, the girl approached Retta and let him know she was finished. Meanwhile, he sat leisurely at the table, sipping hot tea. She offered an apology for making him wait, but he simply smiled, assuring her that it was no trouble at all. Afterward, he suggested they go out together to pick up some clothes and shoes for her. The innkeeper warmly wishes the travelers a safe journey, offering a friendly wink to Mia and suggesting she ask Rado to buy her the finest clothes. Blushing with embarrassment, Mina pauses at the door to ask once more. Rado, however, simply waves his hand, signaling that it is time for them to leave. After a while, the road leads them to a small shop. The shopkeeper greets them with a welcoming smile. Red, polite as ever, immediately shares the reason for their visit. He wants to buy clothes and shoes. The sharp-eyed old woman quickly notices the uniqueness of her visitors. A determined adventurer, a devoted father, and his young daughter. The sight of the girl in worn-out clothes leaves the shopkeeper visibly surprised. Curiosity sparks in her eyes as she asks the boy if he has any spare items to offer. Rena, flustered by the attention, hurriedly shakes her head in refusal, while Mina quietly retreats, seeking shelter behind his back. With a determined stride, Grandma made her way toward the clothing display, kindly asking for a moment while she browsed for something that would suit her taste. With her belongings gathered, the girl approaches, showing off the dress and explaining that it's crafted from a single piece of fabric, promising comfort for the journey ahead. She then suggests trying on the outfit. Once her things were gathered, Mina hurried toward the fitting room. The moment she vanished from sight, the grandmother turned to Red, curiosity flickering in her eyes as she asked what troubled him. Red simply shook his head, quietly admitting he hoped to find someone in this little town who might know the mysterious girl. The shopkeeper, surprised, notes that this is the first time she has seen this girl. In a small town where everyone recognizes each other, even if only by sight, such an encounter feels out of place. The boy simply nods, finding her observation reasonable. From behind the curtain of the fitting room, Mina peeks out, softly calling the boy. Stepping forward with a hint of embarrassment, she shyly asks his opinion on her appearance. Under his grandmother's gentle insistence, Red finally admits the truth. Vina's beauty captivates him, and her fresh look suits her perfectly. A radiant joy spreads across the girl's face. Surprised, Red realizes just how enchanting she is, never imagining things would unfold quite like this. With a gentle smile, the grandmotherly shopkeeper leans in and asks Mina which outfit she'd like to try on next. Caught off guard, Mina repeats the question in disbelief. The shopkeeper then kindly explains that as a traveler, one dress will never be enough for her adventures. Wearing a gentle smile, Rita softly patted the young girl's head and suggested to the grandmother that she choose clothes Mina would genuinely enjoy. After selecting a new outfit, the girl made her way to the fitting room. Once she stepped out, nerves fluttered inside her as she approached Red, hoping to hear his opinion. The grandmother was quick to offer praise, remarking that the look suited her perfectly. No sooner had Mina changed into her new outfit than she spun around joyfully in front of Red and his grandmother, eager to hear their thoughts on her look. Red's eyes lit up with admiration as he told her she looked absolutely wonderful. Sharing a warm smile with his grandmother, they casually suggested she try on another outfit, a proposal that caught Mina completely off guard. Brimming with happiness, Grandma promised to pick out yet another outfit. The young woman expressed her gratitude for such thoughtful care, her eyes captivated by the beautiful new clothes already spread out before her. As twilight began to settle over the city, shopping bags swinging gently at their sides, Mina and Rita made their way home. Rita offered to help carry the parcels, but Mina simply smiled and politely declined his assistance. Uncertainty flickered in her eyes as she clutched the bag of belongings and cast a quick glance at the boy before turning to Rita. Noticing the change in her expression, the boy studied her closely and softly inquired what was wrong. Mina's heartfelt, radiant smile lit up the entire house as she expressed her gratitude for the gifted dress, vowing to treasure it like a hidden gem. Retta gave her a cheerful wave, wished her good health, and promised that a delicious dinner would await everyone once they returned to the hotel. The travelers arrived at an impressive building marked with a hotel sign and stepped inside. After settling at a table, the guests expressed their gratitude for the delicious meal they were served. A bright smile lit up the girl's face as she praised the steak, calling it exquisite. With a hint of hesitation, Red admitted that this was his first time tasting demon boar meat, having heard it was a local delicacy. In response, the tavern owner spoke with pride, explaining that dishes made from it were their greatest specialty. After gathering all the empty plates onto her tray, the waitress turned to the group with a warm smile, mentioning that their demonic piglets had earned a reputation as the finest in the city. After placing the dishes behind the counter, the hotel owner confessed that they had run into some trouble lately. At the sound of commotion from the street, he tensed and swiftly turned toward the entrance. The hotel owner caught the commotion as well, glanced over her shoulder, swiftly removed the scarf from her hair, and strode toward the exit, announcing her intention to find out what had happened. Driven by curiosity to uncover the commotion outside, Red rose to his feet and made his way toward the door. As he stepped out and peered into the street, the sight that greeted him left him utterly astonished. Before him unfolded a scene bustling with wounded people. Among them, an elderly woman stood out, and beside her, the city mayor loudly promised to fetch healing potions from the storeroom, while a young woman at his side fervently encouraged the injured to keep fighting and not lose hope. After stepping out of the hotel, Red surveys the area and notices numerous injured people. Mina, clearly astonished, asks what happened to them, while the townspeople rush over to assist the wounded. Wounded villagers rest on the carts, receiving small doses of painkillers. Red notices that some of them are in particularly grave condition. Wasting no time, gloves are swiftly pulled on as a confident stride brings the healer closer to the wounded. With calm assurance, the healer introduces himself and offers a gentle restoration spell, hoping to win their trust through a display of helpful magic. The mayor's daughter pauses, surprised, her eyes lingering on the young man as he asks Mina to remain at the hotel. Without a trace of hesitation, Mina immediately rushes after him, insisting she will accompany him no matter what. Redo approaches the innkeeper, intent on aiding the gravely wounded man. She silently gestures toward the cart, where the injured figure lies motionless. The boy approached the cart, where a man lay in grave condition. An elderly woman stood nearby, her expression sorrowful as she spoke. Saving him was beyond hope now. Not even Red's healing magic could make a difference. The injury was far too severe, his abdomen torn beyond repair. With a spark of enthusiasm, the moment her hand brushes against the man's stomach, she confidently declares her intention to make use of the recovery anyway. Leaning in close to the elderly woman, Mina quietly inquires about the man's condition. In her hands, she carries medicine, painkillers, and disinfectants. Grateful eyes from the grandmother meet Mina's gentle gaze. The sudden onslaught of demonic wolves caught everyone off guard as these fierce creatures attacked not only the villagers, but also their demonic boars. Amidst the chaos, while others struggled to manage the aftermath of the assault, Mina hurried over to her grandmother, eager to deliver the medicine. Exhausted and barely conscious, the man finally regains his senses and confesses that he had been trying to get rid of the wolf demon, only to end up attacked by it himself. Desperation flickers in his eyes as he pleads for help. Rita, surprised to see the man awake, immediately urges him not to say more than necessary. A wave of anxiety washed over Red as attempts to heal the wound with basic methods failed. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he resolved to master more advanced restoration magic, determined to be prepared for challenges like this in the future. Summoning all his determination, he refused to stop. Since success had eluded him on the first attempt, persistence became his answer. Again and again, he chanted the restoration spell, 3 times in a row, unyielding in his resolve. A wave of unexpected amazement swept over the man as he realized the pain had vanished. Peeling off the bandage, he examined his abdomen closely and, in astonishment, noted aloud that his wounds had healed completely. Astonishment overtook the grandmother as she tried to comprehend how he managed to heal such severe wounds. Behind her, an exhausted Rita lingered, while before her stood a man radiating gratitude. Turning back to the shopkeeper, the man calmly explained that it was simply a restoration spell. A moment later, after cleansing his hands with a wind purification incantation, he inquired about the next customer. From the crowd came a call from one of the locals, who was summoned with urgent news of 4 severely wounded individuals. Nearby, an elderly woman pleaded softly for help for her son. With her arms folded across her chest, Mina silently wished him good fortune, and after a brief farewell wave, he set off toward the other injured people. Some time passed, and as hope for another miracle faded, he murmured that this would be the last time, gripping the injured man's hand tightly. The man's hand trembled involuntarily. After a quick check confirmed he felt no further pain, gratitude overflowed as he bowed deeply to Red again and again. Exhaustion weighed on Red as he wiped the sweat from his brow, yet at that moment the mayor called out to him. Glancing back, the hero noticed the villagers lowering their heads in deep respect, their gratitude clear in every gesture. The village chief approached, his voice humble as he admitted that words could hardly express his thanks for saving the young people of their community. Surprise flickered across Red's face as he raised his hands and gently urged everyone to lift their heads. He calmly explained that he was merely fulfilling his duty. The mayor approached the young man, apologizing for the city treasury containing only 500 silver coins, yet expressing hope that this amount would still be enough for Red. Caught off guard by such a generous reward for nothing more than basic first aid, Red politely declined to accept so much money. The mayor asked again in disbelief, wondering if it could truly be a joke since the number of wounded was staggering. Even for ordinary medical care, he would have demanded no less than 2,000 silver coins. Surprise briefly flickered across Red's face, prompting the elderly shopkeeper to hazard a guess. Perhaps he was a priest or a healer. With genuine curiosity, she inquired if he knew the typical cost of a treatment. With his hand resting behind his head, Red admitted that he usually treated minor injuries without ever worrying about the cost. Mina, in return, wrapped him in a warm embrace, her face glowing with a genuine smile. The innkeeper pointed out that few people possess the ability to use restoration magic, making it a rare talent indeed. For this reason, magical healing costs several times more than ordinary treatment with potions. The mayor shook his head thoughtfully, remarking that this was not simply a matter of saving someone already at death's door. If Retta were to become their priest and healer, the true cost of such a role could prove immense. Red's grandmother always insisted that mastering even the simplest healing magic would have adventurers immediately clamoring to recruit him into their guilds. The thought left Red breathless with astonishment. At last, the true meaning behind Seira's words became clear to the young man. He suggested paying for the night's lodging, yet the villagers simply smiled and gently refused, assuring him their gratitude for his help would not waver, no matter the gesture. Mina gently tugged on Red's sleeve, and as their eyes met, she quietly promised they would return and pay for the night. The mayor's gaze lingered on them, making their intentions clear without a single word spoken. With a warm smile, the man announced that, should they ever find themselves in Morelia, food and lodging would be completely free of charge for them. The sudden compliment that followed left him momentarily flustered, his cheeks tinged red from the unexpected praise. News of the reward filled the boy with undisguised excitement. It felt like a genuine gift to him. Without hesitation, brimming with newfound enthusiasm, he suggested they set out together the next day to hunt these demonic wolves. Lost in thought for a moment, the mayor weighed his options before making a choice. The risk was worth it, since these creatures threatened not only all the livestock and the savage boars, but could eventually turn their wrath on the city itself. Allowing that to happen was out of the question. A flicker of surprise crossed the mayor's face as Retta unexpectedly announced his intention to join them. The boy calmly explained that he and Mina were heading to the market square and wanted to avoid trouble along the way, absent-mindedly running his fingers through the girl's hair. Retta assured that this adventure would not hinder him in any way. While he seldom relied on combat magic, he had nonetheless mastered several offensive spells. A smile spread across the mayor's face as he pointed out that the only thing missing for complete peace of mind was a touch of restoration magic. Rita and the mayor shook hands warmly, both genuinely pleased by their pleasant meeting. Sometime later, upon returning to his hotel room, a long stretch revealed just how tired he felt today. Mina, who had worked especially hard, noticed a marked improvement in her mood after a bath and expressed heartfelt gratitude to Reddy. Nestled beneath the warm blanket, the girl softly called Red's name. He turned his gaze toward her, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Clutching the blanket closer to her face, she confessed in a gentle voice that today he truly impressed her. Embarrassment colored Rada's cheeks as he hesitantly scratched the back of his head, expressing heartfelt thanks to Mina. After gathering his thoughts, he approached the glowing sphere, rested his hand on it, and gently told the girl that it was time for bed. Once the orb faded, the boy wished everyone a good night, while the girl gently added a tender wish for sweet dreams. Together, they both set off to rest. The following morning, a group of armed youths gathered on the street, engaged in lively conversation while birds sang in the background. A newly assembled squad dressed in red stepped forward to face the crowd, immediately drawing everyone's attention. The gathering turned to the red-clad leader, urging him to issue an order. Without hesitation, he declared that these demonic wolves had to be eliminated. The decision received unanimous support from those present. Not far from the city, a pack of demonic wolves launched a sudden assault on the group. The warriors rallied around the wagons, fighting back the attackers with every ounce of strength they had. Among them, a young sorceress apologized, her wounded thigh soaked in blood as her right leg refused to obey her commands. A young man glanced over his shoulder and immediately spotted Feifa's injury. Curses tumble from the lips of the sword-bearing warrior as fury flashes in his eyes. Disbelief colors his voice at the audacity of the demon wolves drawing so close to a human city. His powerful voice rings out, rallying everyone to focus on one task: protect the client and his carriage at all costs. Faith quickly wraps a bandage around the wounded leg to stem the bleeding. Meanwhile, perched on the wagon, the archer observes that the creature's fur is so thick, the arrows barely make a mark. With a grim expression, the swordsman remarks that if things continue this way, the outcome will be disastrous. With a tense voice, he addresses the wounded girl, questioning whether she can still summon her magic. Struggling for breath, Feifa manages to nod, assuring him that some strength remains. Clutching her staff and spellbook, she calls upon the spirit of fire. The staff slices through the stillness, summoning a fiery burst that erupts forward. The fire arrow spell calls upon a flame spirit, unleashing its searing power to scorch enemies to ashes. Powerful blows rain down on the demonic wolf, each one aimed with relentless force. One strike lands directly in its eye, but even that fails to bring the monster down. Feifan's observation makes it clear that the situation is far from ideal. A single shot will not be enough to bring down the enemy. Once more, his gaze drifts toward the spirit of fire. Enraged by the girl, the wolf lunged past the warrior and sprang at her, its unpredictable move catching the swordsman completely off guard. Feifa, caught between fear and unfinished magic, stumbled back from the beast, her spells slipping away unfinished. In a sudden burst of motion, Red charges into the fray, knocking the wolf off its feet with a powerful shoulder strike and rescuing the sorceress from its attack. Not far from them, an exhausted wolf collapses to the ground. The swordsman, his voice brimming with satisfaction, praises their teamwork and raises his blade to deliver the final blow. Gripping the spear with unwavering determination, Captain Riggs plunges his sword into the helpless wolf demon, bringing the fierce battle to a victorious close. Clutching his wounded shoulder, Red glances back at the rousing cheers of his comrades, their voices ringing out as they celebrate his courage and the captain's heroic feat. Inspired by their recent success, Captain Riggs invites the heroes to join him in hunting down the last of the demonic wolves. Eager for the challenge, they readily accept his offer. Red approached the wounded soldier, gently raising a hand to begin the healing process. The warning came in a calm tone. Though the wounds would close, lost blood and strength would not return quickly, so taking on too much too soon would be unwise. Before long, the young man approaches Faye and politely offers to examine her severely injured leg. The protagonist's fingers brushed against the wound, causing the girl to flinch from the pain. Placing her hands gently over the injured spot, she murmured a soft healing spell. Gradually, the pain began to fade, and the unexpected relief slowly spreading through her body left her momentarily incredulous. After this brief exchange, Reddit turns to the captain and his companions, asking if they are members of the Adventurers Guild. They confirm their affiliation, explaining that they are escorting merchants from the royal capital. Meanwhile, their employer, Mr. Eric, steps out of the carriage, visibly surprised by the sight of the Riga. By this point, Rita had finished healing Fate. She withdrew her hands, and to her amazement, Fate realized she could move her leg again. The wound had vanished, and recovery had come with astonishing speed. Captain Riggs lifts his bloodied hand, his eyes searching for reassurance that help will come his way. Retta nods in agreement, softly chanting a restoration spell while calmly explaining that their true goal is to rid themselves of the wolves. From the carriage window, Mr. Eric offers his thanks to the main character before quickly steering the conversation toward payment for the treatment. Red answers with a gentle smile, waving off the offer and insisting his help comes free of charge. Riggs, brandishing his sword in the air, chimes in with his own words of gratitude. Wasting no time, the captain issued sharp, concise orders. Fafa was tasked with handling the wolves advancing from the left side of the wagon, while the city guards took up positions to defend the right flank and deal with the enemies lurking there. With a brief rallying cry, the squad surged forward, fearlessly confronting the pair of predators head-on. The battle cry shattered the silence as warriors closed ranks around the wolves, launching their assault with swords, bows, and halberds. Standing next to Redis, the warrior notes that if they keep up this pace, the entire enemy pack will be wiped out. The most important thing is for the hero to continue healing wounded fighters, bringing them back into the fray. A wave of unease draws every gaze toward the edge of the forest, and a quiet plea to wait passes among those gathered. From between the trees, a vast black shadow emerges, capturing everyone's attention and halting their breaths. As the sense of danger intensifies, a warning breaks the silence. Something is coming. A massive demonic wolf, its muzzle marked by a jagged scar, emerged before the city's warriors and padded closer, cutting through the tense silence with every deliberate step. Awe and wonder swept across their faces as the boys stared at the stranger, unable to look away from his towering figure. Instantly, they suspected they were standing before the leader of an entire pack. With a swift lash of the tail, the warrior is flung skyward, tumbling head over heels. His spear snaps clean in two, and the remaining opponents scatter in all directions. The pack leader, seething with fury, pushes his way toward the wagon. Keen eyes scan the surroundings, taking in the scattered remains of fallen demonic wolves strewn across the ground. The warrior urges Red to stay focused on him, emphasizing that this demonic wolf is the true leader of the pack. The sinister leader of the demonic wolf pack bares its fangs and lets out a chilling howl that sends a shiver of fear through everyone nearby. Meanwhile, Captain Riggs and Fafa ready their weapons, preparing to face the approaching menace. A girl's shout rings out, warning that the enemy is heading straight for them. Tension fills the air as each warrior swiftly takes their position, bracing for whatever comes next. One of the defenders steps forward with resolute determination and stands protectively in front of Reda. Though doubt lingers about his own strength, sincerity colors his promise. No harm will come to the main hero as long as he remains at his post. From her bag, Rita retrieves her spellbook, realizing there is no other choice but to act. Tension electrifies every muscle as a fist tightens, summoning the spirit of fire in response. Flames flare to life, bending eagerly to his command, ready to scorch the enemy to ashes. The warrior stands motionless, gaze locked on the unfolding battle. Without hesitation, Reda thrusts her arm forward and utters an incantation. Blazing bolts of fire surge forth, flying straight toward the leader of the wolf pack. Astonishment washes over the protagonist as realization dawns. He has managed to halt the wolf. Wasting no time, a spell leaps from his hands. Fiery spears soar into battle, piercing the foes and reducing them to ashes. Blazing spears of fire pierced through the wolf from every direction, lifting its body into the air. The lifeless body of the fallen pack leader sinks to the ground, while the spears that moments earlier bristled in the air before the armed warriors vanish without a trace. Astonishment radiates from Fafa as disbelief floods her features. She struggles to trust her own eyes and quietly asks what just occurred. Captain Riggs, equally taken aback, turns toward her and hesitantly inquires if that truly was the ancient fire magic. So immense was its display of strength. The defender who rushed to Red's aid lowered his sword, marveling at the remarkable magic he had just witnessed. Such a display was utterly new to him, something he had never seen before. In response, Red replied with mild surprise, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred, adding that even as an F-rank adventurer mage, he was still a true sorcerer at heart. Captain Riggs's voice sliced through the air with a stern command, urging everyone to stay alert. Even with the pack leader defeated, the demonic wolves remained a dire threat. Thiva glanced around anxiously, asking about the fate of the rest of the pack. Wasting no time, Radha declared her intention to join the fight against the predators, requesting that someone else keep watch over the wagon in her absence. In the very heart of Morelia village, Mina sat at a hotel table dressed in the plain attire of a cleaner, an old rag clasped in her hand. Her eyes flickered repeatedly toward the door, her thoughts circling around one worry. Retta still had not arrived. While sipping tea at the table, the grandmother comforted the girl, assuring her that her father would soon return home safe and sound. The innkeeper, who turned out to be the grandmother's daughter, approached both her mother and Mina, announcing that the youngest of the Rita children had already come back. With her heart pounding, Mina rushes out of the hotel and immediately spots the town's mayor sitting on a nearby bench. Laughter and cheers from children celebrating their victory fill the street, while merchants' wagons gleam under the sunlight. Yet Mina's gaze remains fixed solely on Redia. Relief washes over the girl, and a gentle smile blossoms on her face as she realizes Rada is safe. Meanwhile, Rada has already spotted the familiar features of the girl among the townsfolk. With a joyful cry, Nina rushed forward, crimson eyes shining, as arms stretched wide to welcome her into an embrace warm and long-awaited. Relief and happiness washed over Nina at his return. As evening settled in, a great bonfire blazed to life, drawing people together around its warmth. They gathered to mark their triumph over the wolf pack with a lively and hearty feast. Settling comfortably with a mug of beer, Retta savors the pleasure of unwinding with a cold drink after a long day's work. Nearby, Mina radiates happiness as she dances with the tavern keeper, her genuine smile lighting up the room. The mayor approaches Retta and asks how he is enjoying the celebration, curious about his impressions of the festival. With a warm smile, the young man admits that this banquet is truly extraordinary. An elderly man settles down nearby, eager to discuss tomorrow's journey to Amert with Retta. At that moment, Mr. Eric, the grateful owner of the rescued wagon, approaches, greeting Mayor Morelia and Red warmly. The mayor returns his smile, remarking that the merchant has arrived at just the right moment. With a polite smile, the man admits he neglected to introduce himself and finally shares his name. Eric Rahe, representing the Rahe Company. Extending a hand in greeting, Dixon introduces himself with a warm smile, clearly pleased to meet a new acquaintance. Mr. Eric expresses his gratitude for the assistance and thoughtfully mentions the attack that occurred earlier in the day. Because of his timely intervention, all companions remained unharmed, and even the potions were left intact. With everything safe, they could now move forward without worry to prevent further trouble. Rita remarked that this was truly impressive. Mina's mesmerizing dance holds everyone's attention, her graceful movements captivating the entire room. Amid the spellbound silence, the merchant suddenly turns to the main character and asks whether he will take his daughter with him to Amert. A stranger offers them a ride to the city in his carriage. Radha happily accepts, while Mina turns to address the man. In front of her, a young girl appears, gently holding her grandmother's hand. Mina smiles warmly, inviting them to join the dance. Behind them, the townspeople have already started to spin in a lively circle, swept up in the rhythm of the festivities. The innkeeper nudged Red forward, while simultaneously pulling Mina along by the hand, admitting with some embarrassment that he couldn't dance at all and asking them to wait. Mina just smiled warmly, encouraging him to dance however he could and urging everyone not to waste any time. Mayor Morelia and Mr. Eric Leve offered the boy a warm farewell wave, agreeing to meet him again the following day. As the warm glow of sunset bathes the square, Retta and Mina join hands amidst the crowd and step into the lively dance, moving in sync with the cheerful music alongside the townspeople. The square fills with the lively sounds of drums, lutes, and horns as musicians offer their performance, inviting everyone to dive into the dance carried by the spirited rhythm of their melodies. Each step echoed out loud with a steady count, 1, 2, 3, making Mina laugh in delight. Awkward movements, clumsy like a bear attempting to dance, brought the realization of his lack of grace. Yet he pressed on, encouraged by the genuine happiness shining in the girl's eyes. Sitting unsteadily after a few drinks, the young man found his mind drifting to Linda, his former love, and a deeper ache settled in his chest. The seasoned innkeeper, quick to notice his somber mood, gently inquired about the cause of his sorrow. When he heard himself being called a hero, Retta flushed with embarrassment and quietly asked not to be given that title again. Mina's laughter rang out through the quiet as she watched the scene unfold. Noticing her reaction, the hero asked with genuine curiosity what had amused her, only to realize in that instant that the situation held more meaning than he had first thought. The girl calmly explains that his flushed cheeks are the reason. Eyes fixed on her, the boy ponders whether to bring Mina along. In Morelia, no one knows her, while his own journey will end in Myrta. Realization dawns on Rita. There is no certainty that the girl will find any acquaintances in Amert. Meanwhile, in Morelia, her circle of friends continues to grow. His gaze settles on the girl as Rita gently addresses her, takes her hand, and calmly announces that tomorrow they will depart for Amert. A gentle smile blossoms on Minnie's lips as excitement for the future sparkles in her eyes. An almost imperceptible calm settles over the young man, pushing all his doubts quietly into the background. Pausing in front of her, he quietly mentions that something challenging will begin tomorrow, suggesting they head to bed once this song ends. She listens and agrees with his gentle proposal. The following morning, after saying their goodbyes before departure, the protagonist gave Mr. Eric a firm handshake and expressed gratitude for his hospitality. In response, Mr. Eric remarked on the importance of standing together, especially when faced with difficult times. The innkeeper and her mother approached Mina carrying a basket. They had baked cookies themselves, hoping to offer their guests a sweet treat for the journey. Mina expressed her sincere gratitude for their thoughtfulness. The townspeople, accompanied by the mayor, gathered to bid Radha a heartfelt farewell, assuring him he would always be a welcome guest, and that they eagerly anticipated his return. Settling comfortably inside the carriage, Master Eric urged the hero to take his seat without delay, knowing there was little point in dragging out the farewell. Villagers had gathered in full to bid them a heartfelt send-off. The journey began amidst a chorus of animated farewells as the townsfolk showered them with warm wishes for a safe return, promising that their visits would always be welcome. Children called out playfully, vowing to await their next meeting, while Retta and Mina smiled warmly and waved back to the crowd. The road beyond the city stretched out beneath the creaking wheels. Captain Riggs finally broke the silence with a heavy sigh, remarking that it was far too soon for their team to clash with the demonic wolves. Sitting nearby, Feifa simply nodded in quiet agreement. With his head bowed, he admitted that despite Rita's remarkable talent for healing magic, she still found herself ranked among the F-class. At the same time, Fife emphasized that her skill with offensive spells was nothing short of astonishing. Uncertainty wraps around Riggs as the thought of an E-rank beckons just out of reach. Together with Fafa, he stands at the bottom rung, both marked as F-rank. The prospect of advancement occupies his mind, a restless ache impossible to ignore. Sensing his hesitation, Redia offers steady encouragement. Youth gives them an advantage, she reminds him. Patient effort and the passage of time unlock new possibilities. Through hard work, even ranks like C or B may one day seem well within their grasp. A faint smile plays across the swordsman's face, genuine pleasure lighting his expression at the news. Yet in that same instant, the voice of the archer cuts through the moment, announcing that the situation is only growing more complicated, and that they can no longer manage without their leader's guidance. Wearing a confident smile, Captain Riggs announces that it's time to get to work. The mage girl responds with a brief nod, silently signaling her readiness to join in. Once everyone had climbed down from the cart, Mr. Eric pointed out that if they kept up this pace, they would reach Amert before evening. Red felt a flicker of surprise. In his mind, a journey like this should take at least 2 days. The man recalls a time when traveling along the old road meant enduring long detours and winding paths. Now the landscape transforms before his eyes as new bridges and roads appear, making every journey smoother and more convenient. Awe fills Retta as he observes Amert's remarkable progress. Mina, captivated by every word, steals a glance toward Retta, eager to learn more. As they continued toward the mountain and their cheerful companions, Mina savored the delicious cookies offered to her by the innkeeper from a carefully arranged basket. After a short while, Reddit returns to the taxi driver, eyes lighting up as they catch sight of the towering wall. With delight sparkling in their expression, Reddit announces the city has come into view. Mr. Eric, taking a careful look himself, asks if this could be the place known as Mert. According to eyewitness accounts, construction of the outer wall is currently in full swing. With the town only just beginning to develop, only a handful of buildings have sprung up so far, leaving much of the area surrounded by bare earth and a newly laid road. Mr. Eric is fond of lively and welcoming cities, while Rita thoughtfully observes that in such a place, there is enough work to keep even those uninterested in adventure busy. At last, the journey was drawing to a close as the man announced they were almost at their destination. Should Mina or he encounter any difficulties, they could confidently seek help from the Raha company. He promised to repay the favor in due time. Hearing this, Retta asked what favor he meant and wondered aloud about the surprise that awaited them. Tapping lightly on the crates of merchandise, Mr. Eric expresses heartfelt gratitude, explaining how the defeat of the demonic wolves has made it possible to resume trade without fear of further obstacles. Expressing gratitude for the chance to use Mr. Eric's carriage, he also extended an offer to reach out to her should any difficulties unexpectedly arise. Suddenly, the silence around them becomes noticeable. The girl Mina has drifted off to sleep in the middle of their conversation. Resting comfortably against the boy, the man smiles and remarks with a playful tone that their talks may have been just a bit too dull for their young companion. After stepping off the carriage, Retta offered heartfelt thanks for the assistance. The man explained that their next destination lay at the trade gates. Captain Riggs and Feifa bid the heroes farewell, suggesting that if fate ever brought them together again, they should embark on a new journey side by side. Rita and Mina's eyes met, and with quiet understanding, the boy gestured for them to cross the threshold. Without hesitation, the girls linked arms and together stepped through the gate. A broad street stretches ahead of Red and Mina, lined on both sides with rows of 2- and 3-story buildings. The flow of people never lets up, and carts rattle over the cobblestones. With a firm grip on Mina's hand, the hero studies the map intently. At the end of a lengthy journey, the main character arrives at the Amur branch of the Adventurers Guild. Millet, a guild staff member, greets the newcomers with genuine warmth, eager to offer her assistance in any way she can. A pleasant smile spreads across Red's face as he gazes at the girl before him, voicing his wish to settle down here and join the guild. The guild worker, processing his words, politely seeks confirmation that they truly intend to relocate. Satisfied with their answer, she graciously invites them to follow her to a table at the bath. In a quiet corner, set apart from the rest, Red and Mina receive a form that will connect them to the guild. Taking up a pen, Red carefully writes his name, Red Dixon, in the designated space, then points out that Mina should also enter her information. At the neighboring desk, a girl immerses herself in the world of Mina Dixon, her fascination evident. Meanwhile, a boy beside her diligently fills in the empty sections of her notebook, focused entirely on his task. With an awkward air, Radha quietly apologizes, explaining she has no wish to intrude, casting a careful glance at the girl. Mina lowers her head in response, softly shaking it to indicate refusal, then lifts her face in a gentle smile, reassuring Radha that everything is truly fine and expressing her genuine gratitude. The next section on the form called for a reason for moving. Pausing for a moment, the protagonist weighed the options, hoping there might be a category for family members on this form as well. For now, it seemed wise to jot down the general motivation, saving the finer details to discuss later at the guild. Fingers darted toward the pouch at the waist, seeking out a small but crucial bundle nestled among assorted belongings. Memories of the letter flickered to life, and soon the sealed recommendation from the Grand Royal Guild appeared. Offering a calm explanation of its purpose, the traveler handed the letter to the attendant, who promptly agreed to take the document for inspection. Astonishment sweeps over Mile as she uncovers the truth. It is not a letter of recommendation, and the realization instantly leaves both her and the redhead at a loss for words. The girl responds by revealing that this is no ordinary letter of recommendation. It comes from Sira herself. Concern flickers across Mina's face as she wonders if something is wrong, but the employee reassures her, explaining that a recommendation from Sira holds even greater value than a standard letter. The next question centers around the letter. Is it true that Mr. Dixon possesses healing magic? It turns out he actually works for the Healers Guild. Red affirms this, but explains that Dixon's abilities are limited. He can mend injuries, but not cure every ailment. With a burst of excitement, the staff member declares that even if it is only restorative magic, its value cannot be measured in money. Hope flickers in her eyes as she asks if the request could be processed more quickly. Reda responds by asking which application she is referring to. The hero graciously declined, politely asking for a bit more time, as he truly had no idea where he and Mina would be staying that night. Mila quickly reassured him, mentioning that the guild had a trusted inn known for welcoming heroes, so they could spend the night there. The waiter explains that the guild will cover the entire cost of their hotel stay, and, in addition, grant them unrestricted access to the guild's collection of magical books. Reddit feels genuinely grateful for such generosity. Once calm returned, Mila fixed a thoughtful gaze on the hero's eyes and quietly asked whether he would accept their request. With an easygoing smile, Reddip rests his hand behind his head and calmly explains that this is nothing more than a simple healing spell, serving as a substitute for a potion. The staff member, satisfied with the response, nods approvingly, offers a polite bow, and expresses gratitude. With a sealed letter in hand, she explains that it must be delivered to the inn, and Rita accepts the message with gratitude. As evening settles in, the main characters finally arrive at the hotel. Waiting for them at the entrance is Riggs Dolan, the bearded dwarf who owns the establishment. Beside him stands a young woman who greets them warmly and introduces herself as Mylan. With a warm handshake for Riggs, Red introduces himself and Mina, gently mentioning that the girl is a bit shy. He earnestly hopes that Millen will become a good friend to her. Smiles brightened the girls' faces as they shook hands. Myling asked if Mina lived in the city and suggested they become friends. Blushing from shyness, Mina quietly agreed. The master notices how his daughter grows fond of Mina, and the girls openly delight in the moments they share. Amid their laughter, Red hesitantly reveals that Mina is not his daughter, leaving Riggs quite taken aback by the revelation. Riggs Dolan observes that a life of adventure brims with surprises, making details unnecessary. The task of protecting Rita falls to her, and that alone decides her path. Someone pointed out that the room isn't private, suggesting it would be better to choose an available one instead. Red expressed his gratitude to the hosts for their warm welcome, adding that he had no further questions. In response, the bearded steward assured him he was happy to help and, since they would now be living under the same roof, encouraged everyone to treat each other as family. Riggs asked his daughter to guide the guests to their room, making sure she showed them the bath and toilet as well. Milena, cheerful and eager, assured him she understood perfectly. Her father then mentioned that they would all be gathering at the table later, and kindly invited her to join them. The innkeeper's daughter grabs Mina's hand and, with a cheerful grin, pulls her along without delay, inviting her to join in. Meanwhile, Red and Riggs linger behind, absorbed in their own quiet conversation. Mylene bounced into the room, cheerfully balancing a tray piled high with food on her head. Wearing a bright smile, she hurried over to the table, apologized for the weight of the dishes, and happily announced that pilaf, salad, and a generous meat soup were all ready and waiting for the guests. Plates now rest neatly on the table as she settles in beside Mina. Across from them, a figure in a red dress waits patiently for the others. Once every dish finds its place, warm wishes for a pleasant meal fill the air, and everyone begins their lunch with cheerful smiles. The sight of the steaming bowl of soup immediately caught Mina's attention. After tasting a spoonful, delight sparkled in her eyes as she realized the flavor was not just good, but extraordinary. Her obvious pleasure drew a proud smile from Mealing, who noted that her father's cooking skills always managed to impress. With a warm smile, Mina agreed, This dish truly seemed enchanted. Retta savors the pilaf, immediately noting how perfectly it's browned, with a tempting crust, fragrant aroma, and exceptional flavor. The only drawback is a slight saltiness, a result of cooking it on the grill. The guests at the inn openly express their delight, offering heartfelt praise to Mr. Riggs and recalling how they always imagined dwarves as masterful blacksmiths. Reddy's, ever wise, comments that both a good meal and a sturdy sword can resolve any challenge. Malin reminisces with the guests, recalling how her father once forged swords but chose a new path as a cook after she was born. Admiration sparkled in Rita's eyes as she took in Malin's father, silently branding him a truly remarkable man. Her brilliant smile made it clear that she believed it with absolute certainty. The heroes made their way back to their room. The young man remarked on how remarkably cheerful the innkeeper's daughter was. Mina agreed, mentioning that they had become somewhat friendly already. A sense of relief washed over the young man, grateful they had made a friend here, especially since they would be staying for quite a while. A gentle knock echoes through the air, prompting everyone to turn and see who has arrived. Malin appears in the doorway with a warm smile, inviting Mina to join her in the bathroom. Inside a special room, Mina offered her assistance, gently lathering Milan's hair and carefully rinsing away the suds. Every motion spoke of her considerate care for her new friend. With her hair swept up in an elegant style, the girl wonders aloud if the lady of the house might be nearby. Mei Ling, wearing a gentle smile, mentions that despite any challenges, she spends her days happily, filling them with various tasks and sharing each one with her father. Observing the heroine, he notes that strange things sometimes happen here, and occasionally there are problems with the visitors. Suddenly she darts forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she describes how, in moments like these, her father transforms into a true hero. Smiling confidently, he strikes a bold, fearless pose. Arms crossed over her chest, the girl declares that her friend's father is just as good as anyone. Mina smiles in agreement, adding that Retta truly stands out as a remarkably kind and compassionate person. Kneeling side by side and gripping each other's hands tightly, the girls beam with joy as they cheer about their dream for their fathers to become friends who visit the bathhouse together and help each other with the laundry. Awkwardness settles over Rita as she listens to the girls. In the quiet, she admits to herself that Malin is clearly going too far. The following day, near the city, loggers set about clearing the forest. Among them works Red, his injured arm pressed close to his side as he quietly tends to the wound with gentle bursts of restorative magic. Astonishment and admiration brighten the face of Amore adventurer as he witnesses the healing unfold. The realization that Red has managed to cure 3 gravely injured people at once leaves him struggling to believe his own eyes. Curiosity sparked thoughts about Red's true character. He proved to be honorable, agreeing to take on the task alongside a child. Apologetically, the young man explained that he had only arrived in Amert the previous day, so he could not leave her alone. A gentle hand glides through the girl's hair, accompanied by a warm smile and a compliment about her remarkable father. The stranger addresses her as a young lady, and in return, Mina gratefully calls him her adventurer, uncle. A troubled look settles on the man's face as he pleads with the young lady not to be so harsh with him. At the very least, he asks her to call him elder brother, since he is only 40 years old. The warriors standing nearby exchange playful remarks, suggesting that with his age, uncle would be more fitting, though with his weathered appearance, grandpa might suit him even better. Tex drapes an arm over the protagonist's shoulders, then unexpectedly turns to Mina and asks if he might become her uncle. The question catches Mina off guard, leaving her momentarily at a loss for words. She pauses, considering the unexpected proposal. With a gentle smile, the girl reassured everyone that it wasn't true. Retta was simply Retta, certainly not some old uncle. Amused by her words, Retta chuckled and thanked her warmly. After a short while, the men fixed their attention on the main character. Confused by their sudden focus, he asks what they want from him. One of the adventurers approaches, gives Red a friendly pat on the back, and says, "It is now his turn." Catching the hint, Red turns his attention to the message. Unable to hide his excitement, the young man asks them to wait and seeks clarification about what exactly is expected of him. In response, the man smiles and encourages him to simply try using magic. With a curious glance at the group of adventurers, Rita questioned whether they truly expected him to take on the task of felling the forest and wondered how exactly they envisioned the process. After a moment's thought, the young man decided it was worth giving it a try, while the technician encouraged him to boldly bring any new ideas to life if inspiration struck. With clenched fists, the protagonist gave his assent, urging everyone to keep their distance. Then, turning his attention to the spirit of the wind, he began to speak. Focus locked onto every thought as he commanded invisible blades to spiral and scatter below him, the chant of a spell on his lips. Wings of wind sliced through the air, cutting sharp paths like honed knives. Red's spell surged into the air, and in an instant, a wave of raw energy sliced through the trees at their base, sending the trunks crashing thunderously to the ground. Astonishment filled everyone present, with Red himself admitting that the spell was far more powerful than he had anticipated. Standing just behind the others, Mina watched in awe and excitement, unable to resist announcing how amazing he was. Overwhelmed by a mix of joy and astonishment, Tix confessed that he had truly asked for help, never imagining events would unfold to such an extent. The men could not conceal their surprise. Some marveled at the idea that this could be considered a beginner's level of wind blade magic, while others noted that Red's blades were clearly far more powerful than usual. If things continued like this, facing such talented rivals, their jobs would soon be in jeopardy. Perhaps after witnessing this, they themselves would end up trading magic for axes and working as lumberjacks. With a hint of awkwardness, Red scratched the back of his head and quietly mentioned that luck had been on his side lately. Suddenly, Text grew curious. If the strength of magic depended directly on the amount of magical energy, how much energy did the hero actually possess? Tex nodded in agreement, signaling that the time for talk was over, as important work awaited them. Casting his eyes over the piles of chopped wood, he suggested loading everything onto the cart. Having this many helpers by his side, with 30 hands working together, made the job move along at a much quicker pace. Extending a hand, Rita softly chanted the spell of chains, and the scattered firewood swiftly gathered itself into neat, orderly bundles on the ground. Casting his gaze over those present, the man announced that he actually kept his belongings in a separate box. With a swift motion of his hand, the protagonist summoned storage magic, drawing the chains and all the timber into his belt pouch with a resonant rush. The forest emptied in an instant, leaving nothing behind but bare stumps scattered across the landscape. Silence fell once more, an air of astonishment settling over everyone. On the adventurers' display, a message appeared. Before them stood a young man, skilled in all things. Amid the gathering, Mina quietly watched Red from the sidelines. His genuine smile and effortless way of connecting with others made her reflect on just how kind-hearted he truly was. A gentle smile lit up her face. During their very first meeting, an air of danger seemed to surround him, prompting her to stay alert. Yet those initial fears quickly faded away. A simple introduction was all it took for him to treat her with genuine kindness. Warmth and kindness marked every interaction Rita had with her. Among all the healers, none compared to him. Up ahead, the men argued loudly, their voices carrying as they discussed changing their plans and deciding to depart sooner than expected. Swiftly, everyone needed to pack their belongings, harness the horses, and prepare for an early journey home. While Dr. Minimet focused solely on money, Reddit cared deeply for the people he treated. The young man promised to assist others and politely asked Minimet to wait. A gentle smile lit up Mina's face as she waved at Red, silently wishing for his swift return. In her heart, she rejoiced at her good fortune, grateful that life had brought her together with such a remarkable person. The girl had already realized that he had been asking Mrs. Millet from the guild and Mr. Riggs from the inn about her family. Beneath the quiet night sky, she stood in thoughtful silence, her gaze fixed on the moon, as she pondered her loved ones and what might happen if Frida ever uncovered the whole truth about her. In her mind, his somber expression takes shape, as if a smile will never again appear for her. She imagines him thinking the worst of her and simply turning away. Inside, a painful tightness forms, since her heart silently pleads for anything but this outcome. With a broad, welcoming smile, Redu waves at her with one hand, then calls her over to join the others at home as the entire group gathers, and the horses are already harnessed to the wagons. A gentle smile plays on her lips as she agrees, confessing that she is already on her way to meet him, her heart filled with a longing to remain by his side. At last, the travelers' journey led them to the bustling city of Amert, where, cloaked in the shadow of a towering high-rise, a mysterious hooded figure watched their every move. Beneath the hood, the dust-streaked and scratched face of a young woman remains hidden. Clutching the edge with one hand, she watches the main characters intently from her perch on the rooftop. Only a few minutes had passed since the new mission began, yet the ground was already littered with the bodies of two defeated monsters. Nearby, the remnants of a shattered cart lay in disarray, surrounded by wounded survivors. Rada knelt beside them, quietly focusing as she channeled healing magic to ease their pain. The warrior, still recovering from his severe wounds, slowly rises to his feet. Placing a grateful hand on the hero's shoulder, he thanks Red Dixon for saving his life. His sister had already mentioned her miraculous healing spell, but only now, witnessing its astonishing power firsthand, does he truly comprehend just how remarkable it is. Mere moments ago, he had been certain that he would not survive this battle. Astonishment flashes through Rada's eyes like lightning as uncertainty takes hold. Just which sister does he mean? Instinctively, a hand rises to mask the confusion spreading across her face. The man forms circles with his fingers around his eyes, mimicking glasses, and subtly signals for the hero to take notice. Rita immediately catches on, realizing he is referring to Millet's colleague from the Amert guild branch. She even remarks that, indeed, the person bears a striking resemblance to her sister. Amidst the fallen demon, the young man notes with surprise that he never expected to find such a massive creature so close, only an hour's drive from the city. The warrior responds, recalling that until now, only small beasts had ever appeared in these parts. Without warning, Mina steps up to the group of boys, deep in conversation, and reminds them about the demonic wolves spotted in Morelia, drawing their attention squarely onto herself. Enthusiasm for the unfolding events fills her, yet excitement mingles with a hint of anxiety. The warrior reflects silently on her words before she carefully voices a new thought. Perhaps the animals are fighting to defend their territory. Glancing at the people gathered around, Reda turns to ask what their next move should be. The warrior, with calm assurance, explains that their first priority is to repair the wagon. They will spend the night here, setting out for Amert in the morning. Before setting out, Rada assured everyone he would return with Mina before nightfall. The warrior wished him caution, and a firm handshake sealed their resolve. After bidding farewell to those staying behind for the night, the protagonist and the girl quietly left the camp, walking at a steady pace. Rada and Mina strolled through the city, their hands entwined as if nothing could separate them. A gentle breeze toyed with the leaves, while birdsong filled the air, bathing everything in tranquility. The exhaustion from their earlier errands began to show. Reda let out a discreet yawn, which Mina noticed right away. She glanced at him with concern, softly asking if he felt all right and offering him a chance to rest. When the girl asked if he had stayed up reading magic from the guild's grimoires while she slept, Rita reassured her with a gentle smile. He admitted he had fallen asleep early, so there was nothing to worry about. Her concern brought a quiet warmth to him. The forest suddenly erupted with noise as birds took flight in a frantic rustle, prompting the heroes to glance around, alert and tense. Suppressing her unease, Mina quietly wondered what could have caused such a commotion. Eyes caught a narrow path winding through the undergrowth, and Mina gestured toward it before turning back to Rad. He suggested they take a look at what lay ahead, but warned they should retreat at once if trouble arose. With a brief nod, Mina signaled her understanding. Making their way along the forest trail, the heroes came upon several monstrous corpses scattered among the roots and spotted an abandoned wagon nestled between the trees. Racing up to the group, His first concern was their well-being, and he quickly introduced himself as an adventurer from Mert. However, as he took a closer look, astonishment swept over him. The figures before him were elves, and so close to a human settlement at that. In one swift motion, the elf draws the bowstring taut, an arrow poised and ready as a clear command rings out. No one is to take another step. Raising her hands in a gesture of peace, Rita assured him that she meant no harm and politely asked for a moment of his patience. Although well aware of the elves' deep-seated mistrust toward humans, their level of caution still caught her off guard. The sight of an injured elven child nearby stirs a deep sense of worry. Rita, unable to contain her concern, immediately asks if the child will be all right. The elf, holding a bow, fixes her with a stern gaze and curtly insists that it is their own matter to handle. The child, resting on the elf's lap, breathes with difficulty yet remains quietly by their side. Mina's angry voice echoed through the room as she declared that a child was suffering. In response, Retta calmly explained that restoring magic could easily heal the little one. With unwavering conviction, the man insists they cannot trust people. Retta, steadfast and resolute, pleads for a chance to examine the child, promising a cure if they are allowed to help. All they ask for is a measure of faith. Tears shimmered in the eyes of the elf woman standing nearby. Grateful for the offer of help, she gently explained that the boy had been poisoned by the fangs of a ruby tiger, a wound beyond the reach of ordinary healing magic. The elf's eyes lit up with hope as Riddish suddenly remembered that, if this was poison, he could cast a purification spell. Without a moment's hesitation, the woman darts toward the man, grabbing his armed hand and pleading with the protagonist to save her son. The gunman addresses her by name, Edith, his irritation at her actions clear in his voice. Tears stream down his face while Edith addresses a man named Klaus. She reminds him that if they stand by and do nothing, a girl named Kate will be in grave danger. Trusting each other is the only option left. In that instant, Red darts toward the child, slipping past the quarreling elves. Klaus notices and draws his bow again, aiming with steely focus. Edith, staying close, insists that this man might prove useful, but Klaus refuses to lower his aim. Mina rushes forward, positioning herself protectively in front of Red. Mina steps boldly in front of the Red one, shielding him with unwavering resolve. She calmly declares that if he does anything wrong, the elf should shoot her instead. This way, she explains, they will be on equal footing. Her words strike the elf deeply, leaving him startled and uncertain. Rada expressed his gratitude to the girl for her assistance, briefly wondering what had driven her to take such a risk. Pushing these questions aside for the moment, he focused on treating the elven boy, gently casting a spell to purge the poison from his body. A wave of relief washed over Red as he realized how invaluable it was to have mastered the detoxification spell from Grim Wars. Determined to keep healing magic at the forefront of his training, he resolved to rely on restorative spells from now on. Next to Reda, a boy lay sprawled on the floor, suffering from the poison of the ruby tigers. Edith, fighting back tears, turned to Klaus and gestured toward Keith, whose face was slowly gaining color as his health clearly began to improve. Klaus turned to the boy and lowered his bow, while Mina glanced around in relief and remarked that it seemed everything had been settled. Bowing low to the ground, Cloud offered Red a heartfelt thank you for saving his son, expressing both sincere apologies and deep gratitude. With a tone of regret, the man admitted they had no money to pay for treatment. In response, Red Dash simply smiled, waved his hands energetically, and assured the elf there was no need to worry. After all, he was just an ordinary traveler with a knack for healing magic. Pulling a sheet of paper from his backpack, the hero made his request clear. If they wished to show their gratitude, the best way would be to inform the Amert Adventurers Guild that the task had been accomplished. That alone would be enough to consider his debt repaid. While scrolling through the messages, Klaus arched his eyebrows in surprise upon discovering the sum was only 5 silver coins. Edith immediately pointed out that this offer was actually more profitable than the potion she had bought earlier. Mina remarked that potion prices had recently increased, as monsters had grown far more numerous. Curiosity sparked within Rada, prompting him to ask why they sought out humans for potions when elves possessed a remarkable remedy of their own. Rumors spoke of its power, said to far outshine ordinary brews. The elves slowly shook their heads, regretfully explaining that the miraculous medicine had run out. Red, concerned, asked what had happened. Klaus began his tale, revealing that a dragon was to blame. This revelation took the main character completely by surprise. Plaus shared unsettling news. Their village had recently become the hunting ground of a black dragon, whose attacks were growing ever more frequent. Edith continued, explaining that the local warriors had challenged the creature and managed to force it to retreat. Yet the damage had already been done, and the destruction was considerable. The last drops of healing elixirs had been used, leaving many warriors plagued by lingering wounds. Should the enemy choose this moment to strike again, abandoning the village would become their only option. Nina's anxious eyes met his, yet Red answered with a gentle smile and softly patted her head in reassurance. Turning then to Klaus, he asked if he would allow him to join their group on the way to the village, pointing out that his restorative magic could prove useful there. Edith's gaze locked with the elf, prompting Klaus to note that, if this was the case, they had gained a valuable ally. Red introduced himself to the group, stating his name clearly. The elf expressed a willingness to persuade the villagers, and with genuine earnestness, asked for help in healing their injured warriors. Consciousness returned to Git, as the gentle sway of the carriage carried him along. Strangely, no pain lingered in his body. A suspicion of his own death crept into his mind, and with measured caution, he slowly opened his eyes. Mina, seated nearby, watched him closely and noticed the change in his demeanor. Sensing something was wrong, she quietly asked if he was all right. The elf boy was so startled by her question that he almost jumped out of his seat. Unease lingered in her chest as questions tumbled out one after another, anxious to know if anything else hurt or if everything was truly all right. Keith's reassurances finally brought a radiant smile to her face. Relief washed over her, and with hands clasped in front of her, she warmly expressed how genuinely happy she was for him. Confusion swirled through Kit's mind as he struggled to make sense of how everything had unfolded. Wonder washed over him, for the last memory that lingered was of him crouching beside his parents, ears hidden from view, purchasing potions in a bustling human city. On the way back, a sudden assault came from the ruby tiger, a powerful beast with a wild, furious gaze. It lunged forward, its jaws sinking into flesh as it knocked him to the ground, pinning him down with its immense weight. An angel appeared before his eyes, offering him a towel while a boy sat calmly nearby, a detail that no longer seemed to matter. In that moment, his parents also realized that their son had finally awakened. Rising to his feet, he reached for a towel and pressed it gently to his forehead, before finally breaking the silence. Mina immediately turned to him, her curiosity evident as she wondered what he wished to say. The flustered elf, cheeks tinged with red, introduced himself as Kit and expressed his gratitude for her concern. Mina, in turn, shared her own name and warmly welcomed the newfound acquaintance. Brimming with curiosity, Kate eagerly asked the girl about her origins. The girl, slightly embarrassed, admitted she came from Amert. The elf smoothly steered the conversation forward, mentioning his own recent travels to those very lands. With sudden enthusiasm, the young man launched into a tale about his mother preparing meals for the soldiers, while his father chose the sword over the bow more often than not, leaving everyone present quite astonished. To Reed's amazement, the massive tree before him slowly parts, creating an open path for the approaching carriage. The marvel of this unexpected sight fills him with genuine wonder. A strange scene unfolds before Mina. As the carriage rolls past, the trees calmly slide back to their original spots, erasing every trace of the road. Meanwhile, Kate keeps a sharp eye on the girl, studying her every reaction. The cart came to an abrupt halt amid the dense forest. Minu glanced around in bewilderment, curious to learn why their journey had suddenly paused. Radiating joy and robust health, the cat waved to the side and calmly explained that only elves could reach this place. Suddenly, a large magical circle blazed to life beneath the carriage. With calm composure, the elf explained that an ancient portal lay before them. Suddenly, everything transformed around them. Nighttime shadows pressed in, and the familiar landscape vanished, replaced by scorched, splintered trees stretching beneath a sky dusted with stars. The ruins of once lively homes, concealed beneath the towering trees, sparked both wonder and sorrow among the heroes. The group paused beside the tangled branches, where traces of an elven settlement still clung on, and looked around with heavy hearts. Mina pressed a hand to her chest and quietly murmured that this was truly heartbreaking. A colossal tree towered over the land, its roots embracing a shadowy arch that marked the entrance to a gate. Klaus turned to Retta, eagerness in his voice as he asked if he could begin healing the warriors right away. Retta nodded in agreement, reminding him that this was precisely why they had come. Surprise flickered in the eyes of an elf as Klaus appeared before him, unharmed and whole. The elf's companion, spotting a human among them, loudly announced the newcomer's presence. In an instant, the elves armed with bows gathered around the arrivals, directing a pointed question at Klaus about the reason for their visit. Meanwhile, the heroes stepped down from the wagon and made their way toward the tree. Elven archers drew back their bowstrings, aiming sharp arrows at the humans. Their voices rang out cold and stern as they demanded to know who had granted Klaus permission to bring outsiders into their village. Klaus's voice broke the silence, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. Calmly, he revealed that Red possessed healing magic and had used this gift to save their son after a monster attacked him during their journey. The archers once more inquired if they had truly heard of such miraculous magic, then remarked that every healer among humans only knew how to swindle people and demand outrageous sums of money. Mina, undeterred by their suspicion, firmly insisted that Rita was nothing like those frauds. Kit echoed her conviction, adding that her father was an honest man and would never stoop to anything so disgraceful. From the shadow of towering trees emerged a gray-haired elf, his expression marked by concern at the commotion echoing through the forest. At once, the archer recognized him as the village elder. Edith quickly explained that her family had vouched for Red and requested permission to escort him to the warriors to offer his assistance. Red responded with a respectful bow, introducing himself to the venerable elf. Introducing himself as a traveling mage skilled in restorative magic, he explained that his abilities surpassed any potion's effectiveness. Unless anyone objected, he was ready to begin the healing at once. The village elder approached Red, his tone tinged with solemn reflection. He remarked that in these troubled times, a stranger and a healer had come to visit them. Their eyes met, heavy with the weight of unspoken thoughts. With a weary sigh, the elder paused in deep thought, realizing it might be time for change. At last, he accepted the offer of help and vowed to guide Red Dixon personally. Turning toward Dixon, he requested that he save their warriors. The bowmen nearby exchanged astonished glances, taken aback by this unexpected choice from their leader. Entering the hollow of the great tree, Rada and Mina observed countless wounded elves resting upon enormous leaves. The elder, his voice tinged with relief, remarks that they were fortunate. Thanks to Hildegard, not a single life was lost. Curiosity flickered across Mina's face as soon as the question about Hildegard arose. The elder explained that no one in their village could surpass Hildegard as a warrior, and her magical strength stood unmatched among all the inhabitants. The triumph over the dragon owed itself entirely to her wise leadership, and for that reason alone, joy spread among the elves. In her mind, Retta replayed the victorious moment, picturing the delighted faces of her friends. Driven by an unyielding desire to save everyone, she endured the scorching breath of dragons. The proud warrior set aside any medicine or healing elixir, reserving them for her fellow fighters, knowing these remedies offered only fleeting relief. Redden deeply admired Hildegard, renowned as the settlement's finest warrior. The elder pointed out that her injuries were far too severe. Her entire body had suffered, leaving him powerless to heal her completely. Yet even if he could only ease her pain, it would grant Redden considerable relief. Promising to do his utmost, Rites followed the elder's gesture toward a room where heavy curtains concealed her presence. With his companions in tow, Reitz peeked inside and politely addressed Hildegard, requesting her permission to enter. Two warriors stood by her side, having just finished bandaging her wounds, their astonishment at her arrival written plainly across their faces. Sprawled across a giant leaf, a girl teetered between life and death. Redo's disbelief grew as recognition dawned. Before him lay the village's finest warrior. As her strength returned and she kept watch over the young girl, her eyes fluttered open and settled on the village elder. He immediately urged her to remain still and not attempt to rise. Struggling to her feet, the woman cast an irritated glance at the elder, demanding to know the reason behind the man's visit. The elder calmly assured everyone that there was no cause for concern. He had personally invited the guest, a young man gifted with the magic of restoration. Introducing himself as Dixon, the young man strode confidently toward Hildegard. The elven woman, trembling with pain, attempted to retreat, her voice pleading with him to keep his distance. Unfazed, Rito calmly pulled on his gloves and assured her that he meant only to help. Speaking in gentle tones, he carefully touched her wounds, promising her relief and healing. As soon as the restoration spell ended, a cry escaped the girl's lips, her body seized, frozen by an invisible force, leaving her unable to move. The boy, showing a hint of concern, told her that complaints could wait. Now was not the moment for such things. Worried glances from bystanders followed her cries as the girl desperately pleaded to be left alone. Radia gently suggested shifting her position to prevent the wound from reopening, but the girl stubbornly insisted that no one touch her. Responding with quiet determination, the young man pointed out that without contact there would be no way to heal her injuries. With determination blazing in her eyes, the girl swung her leg, aiming a sharp kick at his stomach. Reed watched her efforts with mild curiosity, quietly wondering how much longer she could keep this up. Reeling from the blow, Red clutched the back of his head, while Hilda steadied herself and carefully stepped off the large leaf perched on the tree. As the bandages slipped away from her body, the onlookers watched in silent astonishment. The wounds that once covered Madame Hildegard had vanished, leaving not a single trace of the burns behind. Gazing intently at the man, she tried to recall his name, then leaned in even closer, her voice tinged with bitterness as she confessed that her body had wasted away, to the point where her very bones were showing, yet he had recognized her at once. At Rita's request, they came to a halt, realizing the moment had lost its urgency. Earlier, his concern had been for Hildegard to cover herself. This realization brought a deep blush to the girls' faces. The young man and the elderly companion turned to leave, and at that moment, she promptly requested all the men to exit the room. Awkwardly rubbing the backs of their necks, they admitted that they had most likely been thrown out. The elder offered heartfelt thanks for the help with healing. Red simply waved it off, insisting it was nothing and that her well-being was all that truly mattered. Turning around, the young man mentioned that he still had plenty of magical energy left, so he would hurry to assist the other wounded. A radiant joy lit up the elder's face as he received the good news. The young boy lifted his hands, calling forth healing magic to tend the wounded warrior. Mina stood close by, lending her eager support throughout the spell. As they lent a hand to the elven family they had encountered deep within the forest, Mina and Kate blossomed with joy and threw themselves into the task with eager determination. Gradually, the spaces where wounded warriors had recently rested became empty. The elder struggled to accept this reality, recalling that there had been as many as 50 of them. Retta let out a weary sigh, quietly admitting how utterly exhausted he felt. Lately, fortune had smiled on the young man. His magical power surged and swelled with each passing day. It felt as if someone had finally removed the lid from a sealed vessel, unleashing a torrent of strength that now poured freely from within him. Klaus approached the heroes and informed the elder that all the elixirs had been delivered to the warehouse. The elder responded with heartfelt gratitude, thanking the archer for his dedication. Klaus, turning to Reddy, shared the news that all the potions they had obtained were preserved thanks to him. The delight on Reddy's face was impossible to miss upon hearing this. The mentor noted that it was time for the boy to take a short break. Turning to Klaus, he asked if everything had been prepared. Klaus replied with quiet confidence that everything was ready, just as they had discussed. With hope lacing her voice, Edith suggested they spend the night, grateful that their home had miraculously remained untouched. With heartfelt gratitude, the hero thanked the elves and let them know he would stay with them that night. Mina, in turn, expressed her appreciation for his help and for keeping Kit safe. United as a family, they shared a peaceful and secure night together. The next day, their journey led them once more to the familiar tree. With cautious steps, they approached the arch among the roots, offering a heartfelt apology for the disturbance. Gently drawing aside the curtain, they discovered Hildegard waiting for them. Upon noticing the hero's arrival at last, she eagerly inquired about their names once more, her patience unwavering as she waited for their reply. Relief lit up Mina's face, grateful that the elf's wounds had finally healed. Meanwhile, Hildegard made it clear her purpose here was simply to express her heartfelt gratitude. Embarrassment colored the elf's features as they attempted to explain their behavior from the previous day, offering a heartfelt apology for their rudeness. They admitted that, among elves, treating humans with excessive courtesy was uncommon. Curiosity sparked in Rita, who politely inquired about the reason behind this custom. Hildegard, sensing her interest, agreed to share the story behind their tradition. At first, she observed that things had grown more peaceful, but there was a time when gangs used to abduct elves, an ordeal that remained the most terrifying story she had ever shared. According to Hildegard, the long lifespans of elves often led to their enslavement by cruel masters. Wealthy individuals would keep elves locked away in the dungeons beneath their homes, and many times these prisoners struggled desperately for a chance to escape. Not all elves managed to escape, leaving some harboring bitterness toward humans and avoiding any contact with them. Rada confessed his genuine regret over this, his words carrying the weight of sincerity. Hildegard's gaze drifted to the side as she continued, mentioning that sometimes people leave their native villages behind and settle among strangers. A profound sense of gratitude fills the hearts of every warrior healed by Red, but her own heart feels it most keenly. From deep within, a heartfelt thank you resonates, directed solely to him. Ritter simply raised his hands, indicating he had merely acted as he thought best and expected no gratitude. The girl, however, puffed out her cheeks and fixed him with a stern look, silently insisting that dismissing someone's thanks was entirely out of line. With a hint of unease, Rita nodded in agreement, assuring that he understood and accepted her gratitude. Relieved, Hildegard let out a gentle sigh and remarked that in that case, everything was settled. Turning to Mina, the woman mentioned that she had heard about Mina's collaboration with Kit. Taking Mina's hands in hers, she warmly invited her closer, wishing to offer a grateful embrace. In response, the two girls shared a heartfelt hug. Her confession caught them off guard. She admitted to struggling with people, yet granted them both permission to call her Hilda. At that moment, her hand gently brushed over Mina's head. Looking up in surprise, Mina softly echoed the shortened name of the elf. During their conversation, the guard Hilda revealed how much the idea appealed to her, and added that, from now on, Mina could call her sister. Hearing these words, Mina smiled and offered heartfelt thanks to her new sister, Hilda. A warm smile brightened Ridal's face as he watched the girls, standing side by side, embrace each other in happiness. At the mention of his name, Hildegard looked over with a spark of curiosity and asked just one question. She wished to know how old the young man thought she might be, a question Mina herself had once posed. The boy had not anticipated such an inquiry, and found himself a bit taken aback. With a wistful sigh, she observed that the hero had not seen her as a child for quite some time. At 316 years old, her growth remains astonishingly slow, a contrast that unsettles her deeply. These unexpected confessions left Mina visibly stunned. Surprise flickered in her eyes at those words. Could it be that years of experience and a long life truly shaped her into such an impressive figure? The elf nodded with quiet satisfaction, a subtle smile playing on her lips, as she gently wondered aloud if she had truly earned their respect. 3 centuries might seem like a respectable lifespan, but for elves, it passes in the blink of an eye. This elder, after all, had witnessed over 1,000 years unfold. According to the girl, the elder of the neighboring village, a journey that takes a full month to reach, had supposedly lived for 2,000 years. Rada found this so astonishing that she began counting aloud, her voice trailing off as she murmured, 1,000, 2,000. Mina couldn't hide her amazement. Hildegard's reaction was instant. Her ears twitched alertly, picking up an unfamiliar sound. Noticing this, the girl asked what was wrong. The elf quietly replied that it seemed someone was hurrying toward them. Curiosity got the better of Reda, prompting her to ask once more while darting a glance toward the curtain at the entrance. Meanwhile, Hildegard voiced her hope that the visitor wouldn't bring unsettling news. At that moment, Klaus steps into the room, apologizing for the sudden interruption. Fear immediately washes over everyone's faces. The black dragon has arrived. Panic sweeps through the crowd as frightened voices call out his ominous name from every corner. Black Dragon. With practiced efficiency, Hildegard packed her belongings and instructed Klaus to prepare for an interception. Klaus grasped her intent immediately and hurried to carry out her orders. Turning next to Reddy, Lil expressed her heartfelt thanks to him and mine for their wonderful hospitality, but made it clear the moment had come to enter the fray. Reda turned to Gilda and asked her to wait, but Gilda shook her head, explaining that she couldn't pause now. Even though the healing had helped, the pain still lingered within her. Carefully, she asked Reda if she truly wished to continue forward. A gentle tap on the shoulder draws his attention, and with unwavering confidence, the girl reminds him that no one in her village can match her prowess in battle. If she does not rise to defend her home, who else will shoulder that responsibility? Burdened by heavy thoughts, the protagonist met her gaze and let out a weary sigh. At last, he found the courage to reveal his choice, leaving Mina astonished. Overcome with emotion, she lunged forward and gripped his hand, desperately trying to halt him. After explaining to the girl that his magic and healing skills would be useful on the battlefield, he received an encouraging reply from Hildegard. She agreed with his plan and suggested they leave together. With a sense of purpose, the two of them drew back the curtain and stepped into the room. With a reassuring wink, Reda vowed to see everyone home safe and sound, asking Minnie to stay behind and lend her support. Smiling warmly, Minnie promised she would be here waiting for their return. In the very heart of the elven settlement, all the warriors had already assembled. As silence settled over the crowd, a commanding shout from Hildegard drew every gaze in her direction. From the crest of the hill, her voice rang out, boldly declaring to all that their enemy was the Black Dragon, the very beast that had recently reduced their village to ashes. Well aware of the dread this creature inspired, she openly admitted her own terror. Still, she reminded everyone that if they chose to retreat now, no one would be left to protect their homes and save their loved ones. The speaker's words breathed new vigor into the warriors, sending their bows arching skyward and fueling their determination. Elven pride stood unmatched, with strength woven into every arrow ready to answer the call. A cry rang out, promising that this time defeat would never touch them and victory would be theirs. As soon as the Black Dragon revealed itself and started its relentless advance, Hildegard reacted without delay. She spun around and commanded the archers to move into position. The Black Dragon soared gracefully, surveying the entire village from the sky. The elf army, fully armed, stood out sharply in his keen vision. Down below, Dixon, our main character, stood frozen in awe as the dragon's immense body appeared even more colossal from the ground. Not much time had passed when the shadow of the Black Dragon loomed over the village. Hidden within specially carved shelters inside tree trunks, the archers loudly announced the start of the battle and quickly unleashed a volley of arrows at the monstrous beast. Arrows rained down in a relentless torrent, piercing the dragon's body and leaving deep wounds in their wake. Large holes riddled the creature's wings, robbing it of strength and grace. A piercing scream escaped his lips as sharp arrows tore through his body. Wings unfurled in desperation, he struggled frantically to pull them out. Hildegard's voice rose from below, urging everyone to keep firing. She joined the others, sending a relentless stream of bullets at the enemy. High above the elven village, a black dragon hovered in the ominous sky, baring its razor-sharp fangs while watching the chaos below with cold indifference. Sensing the imminent threat, Hildegard raised her voice, warning the warriors that the beast was poised to unleash its devastating flames. A gleaming magical barrier unfurled beneath their feet, illuminating the earth with an enormous mystical seal. As the spell left her lips, archers and caster alike found themselves sheltered beneath its protective glow. Pressured by a hail of arrows, the dragon unleashed a wild torrent of fire that slammed against the barrier, the flames now swirling around it from every direction. The suffocating heat lingered, indifferent to the shimmering protective barrier that now shielded the area. Sweat beaded on the hero's brow, and with an absent-minded swipe, he brushed it away, mind drifting to the puzzling question of why the stifling warmth refused to relent. As the torrent of flames finally subsided, the mighty dragon observed the scene before him. The protective barrier remained untouched, and every elf stood unharmed within its shelter. Circling above the village, he gathered his strength after the devastating blow. Seizing the moment, Hildegard wasted no time. Recognizing the perfect opportunity, she commanded everyone to open fire. Renewed strength coursed through the black dragon as he wheeled around, drawing in a deep breath in preparation for another fiery onslaught. The elves immediately recognized the danger and swiftly conjured a protective barrier. While assisting with the ritual, Rita glanced at the best warrior and asked how many more times the incantation needed to be repeated before everything would finally come to an end. Elf fixed Red with a thoughtful gaze and offered a heartfelt apology for dragging him into this mess, aware of his human nature. Red met the concern with a gentle smile, assuring there was no need for regret, since the choice had been his all along. Beside them, their elven companions hurried to replenish their quivers, readying themselves for the coming battle. A gentle smile lit up Hildegard's face as her eyes met the crimson gaze of her companion. With heartfelt sincerity, she expressed the overwhelming happiness she felt simply from having him near, her irreplaceable healer. Adding to her words, she explained that once the black dragon was defeated, the reward would be collected from every village and delivered directly to him. Redden, his face lit up with a smile, remarked on the true excitement of being an adventurer and admitted he could hardly wait for that moment to arrive. Lilligard's voice carried across the battlefield, announcing that the dragon's breath had almost run dry and urging everyone to prepare. At her signal, the elves unleashed another volley of arrows, targeting the beast as it gathered its strength after a draining exhale. In Reddy's mind, the image of the black dragon appeared, its body already bristling with arrows that had inflicted considerable harm. A flicker of excitement, tinged with apprehension, passed across his face as uncertainty lingered in the air. No one could say for certain whether they would be able to overcome this formidable opponent. With a shake of his hand and eyes firmly shut, he banished every anxious thought from his mind, knowing that the moment doubt crept in, it would surely overpower him. Scorching breath from the black dragon swept over everything in a searing wave. Reddo wipes the sweat from his brow, making light of the situation by claiming it's nothing more than extra hot steam. Without delay, he casts restorative magic upon the elven woman. Casting his gaze around, the young man called out, his voice echoing as he checked if anyone had been burned. The thought lingered in his mind that even the scorching air itself, not just the direct touch of the flames, could cause harm. The reason behind the sheer number of wounded became clear. After unleashing a torrent of flames, the black dragon paused to recover, smoke still curling from its jaws. Although exhaustion weighed heavily on Hildes, she assured everyone that the situation remained under control. With steady resolve, she ordered everyone to ready their bows and prepare for the assault. An endless stream of arrows tore through the sky, all aimed squarely at the dragon. Slicing confidently through the air with skillful movements of its wings, the beast evaded the barrage with ease, until the sharp tip of one arrow finally found its mark, striking deep into the dragon's neck. With a gentle smile, Hilda remarked that they had managed to seriously annoy the dragon. The creature seemed completely unaware of the condition of its wings, behaving more like an ordinary lizard than a fearsome beast. The boy then asked what exactly was wrong with its wings. A glance drifted toward the elves, and in that instant, the truth became clear. Both wing membranes had been completely torn. Their motives now lay exposed. It seemed almost unbelievable that after sustaining such damage, flight remained possible at all. At that moment, Red noticed the dragon drawing in a deep breath, its belly swelling with each inhale. Curiosity sparked within him, and he asked what the dragon was up to. Klaus warned the boy to conceal his hands, for within them lay the dragon's hidden weapon. Hilda quickly announced the approach of a fireball and immediately ordered the elves to raise a protective barrier. With jaws stretched wide in a menacing snarl, the dragon unleashed a swift avalanche of fire, its fangs cracking under the strain. In the next instant, a blazing sphere of flame erupted into the air. At that moment, Mina sorted through herbs, comfortably settled inside the house. Suddenly, the air vibrated with a low hum as the walls and floor trembled, making it feel as though the entire house rolled on invisible waves. Fear gripped Mina as she asked what had just happened. The young elf calmly explained that noise had erupted all around them and the ground was trembling. But he quickly reassured her, promising to keep her safe no matter what. The girl approached Mina, gently stroking her hair in a soothing gesture that let Mina know everything was all right. Nearby, Mr. Rita, Mrs. Hildegard, and Klaus stood together, witnessing the tender moment. A gentle smile accompanied the question, wondering why the children had yet to include them in their prayers. The little ones eagerly agreed and began praying with sincere hearts. In a soft, half-whisper, Mina poured her soul into the hopeful wish that Reddy would return alive. A blazing fireball shot forth from the dragon, crashing into the protective barrier with fierce intensity. For a heartbeat, unease hung sharply in the air. Without hesitation, Hild commanded the elf to raise a second line of defense. She explained that only a double barrier could turn the deadly flames back upon themselves. Rubbing his hands together, Red smiled and noted that all the wounded had been healed. Now, with a sense of satisfaction, he was ready to lend his magic to strengthen the barrier and support it with his own power. Cloud, with a smile, observed that fortune seemed to be favoring them, and a genuine opportunity for success had emerged. In response, another elf proposed an idea: to try driving him away. Suddenly, Red noticed something unusual and alerted Hilda to the dragon. Its belly had started to swell noticeably. Realization dawned on Hilda, and she quickly warned that the dragon was preparing to unleash a second attack. The black dragon was determined to burn everything around it, even if it meant sacrificing itself. A blazing fireball rockets from the black dragon's maw as its fangs crumble into shards. Gilda, her voice trembling with fear, exclaims that never before has she witnessed a dragon so utterly consumed by mindless rage. Before the echoes of the previous explosion have faded, the beast unleashes another inferno. Hilda's command rang out with unwavering determination as she insisted that he escape at once. Yet the young man stood firm, maintaining the protective barrier while calmly assuring her he would not abandon his post under any circumstances. The protective barrier demanded more and more magical energy, yet strength was running out. With every passing moment, the barrier grew weaker, tottering on the brink of collapse. As the last reserves of magic drained away, the barrier finally shattered, and in full view of the elves, a blazing fireball hurtled down from the sky. A single thought blazed within Red's mind. Dying now was not an option. Too much remained unfinished for Mina's sake, and leaving her alone was out of the question. He had to find a way back. Just as hope threatened to slip away, the door suddenly creaked open behind him. Rita calls out to the spirit of the wind. Suddenly, behind her, an apparition appears. A young woman who bears an extraordinary resemblance to Mina, but she has matured into adulthood. Her palms pressed gently against the boy's back, unfolding the darkness between them even further. With her arms wrapped around Red, she quietly urged him to begin. From the shadowy corridor, an obsidian radiance surged forth. Responding to the young man's call, the spirit of the wind manifested, swirling into a sudden gust that formed a protective barrier, poised to drive the enemy backward. A sudden, powerful gust of wind swept over the elves. Fear gripped Hilda, prompting him to ask what was happening. Rena, meanwhile, sensed an unfamiliar lightness, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her heart. and an unseen force no longer held her thoughts captive. Magic floods through his body down to the marrow, filling him with a sense of limitless possibility. Summoning the spirit of the wind, each movement becomes weightless and unseen, while an invisible blade weaves through the air, joining the battle with silent grace. Extending his hand, the young man proclaimed to the black dragon his resolve to bring it down. In the next instant, he commanded the blade of wind to strike at the winged beast. A fierce gust shaped into a razor-sharp edge, mercilessly severing the dragon's wing. Black Dragon's eyes widened in shock as he caught sight of his severed wing. Losing his balance, the great beast plunged downward, bracing for the inevitable collision with the earth below. The monster crashed to the ground with such force that the earth beneath it split open. Rising to its feet, the creature shattered the silence with a piercing scream. Its blazing eyes swept over the elves, then settled on the young man who had slashed its wing. A gentle smile played on Klaus's lips as he shared the news. His fangs lay broken, and the days of breathing fire had come to an end. His wing had been torn, leaving flight as nothing more than a memory. No longer a fearsome dragon, Klaus had become just an ordinary lizard. Gilda's voice sliced through the air, signaling it was time for the group assault. Instantly, the elves united their power, weaving spells that summoned formidable chains of roots. These plants surged forth with a life of their own, twisting into sturdy vines that wrapped tightly around the dragon's massive body, their grip strengthened by the magic of the root shackles. Rada pondered the possibility that elves might employ the roots of the great tree in the same manner as tentacles. At that very moment, Hilda sensed the direction of his thoughts. Astonishment rooted the girl in place as she struggled to comprehend Red's true nature. At first glance, he seemed hardly reliable, yet he had faced the black dragon without a flicker of fear. Such unwavering courage left a deep impression on her. Astonishment swept over the girl as she gazed at Red, recalling the miraculous speed of his recovery. Memories surfaced of the immense power he displayed, expelling the dragon's breath with a single blow and severing his own wing in one swift motion. A faint smile brightened her face as she encountered such extraordinary people for the first time. A gentle blush colored her cheeks. Her eyes sparkled with delight the moment Red appeared. She extended her hand, urging him to finish his task quickly. The girl extended her hands, quietly asking the boy to fill them with his wind magic. Her heart pounded so fiercely that the world itself seemed to echo its rhythm. Behind her, the boy hesitated, uncertain if he was performing the spell correctly. Bowstring taut, Hilda readied her shot. The young man directed his magic first into her hand, clutching the arrow, then into the grasp, securing the bow. As the surge of power coursed through her, Hilda urged him on, encouraging an even greater flood of magic, willing her strength to grow stronger. With unwavering confidence, Redis assured that everything was under control and signaled Gildy to release the arrow. A powerful gust of wind spiraled around the arrowhead, hinting at something extraordinary about to unfold. Gilda's voice rang out clearly, her command for the dragon to reveal itself, cutting through the chaos. Around her, the other elves held the creature firmly, their cries echoing as they accused this very dragon of destroying their homes. In a voice edged with despair, the girl declared that Hildegard Ederer, joined by Rita Dixon, would inevitably defeat him. Her hand held steady, the arrow already poised and ready to fly from the taut bowstring. Driven by unwavering determination, the young archer directed her arrows as if the wind itself obeyed her will, guiding each shot unerringly toward its mark. At last, one arrow slipped from the bowstring, racing like lightning straight for the dragon's head. The beast stared ahead, fully aware of the fate that awaited him. At last, the arrow pierced the dragon's skull, and its massive frame froze in an instant. The tangled vines that had gripped the beast unwound, releasing their hold as the lifeless creature crashed heavily to the ground. Frozen in place, Gilda and Reda stared in disbelief at the fallen monster. The silence hung heavy until Reda finally broke it, voicing his uncertainty over their victory. Gilda turned to the boy and, with a smile, offered reassurance that the battle was truly theirs. With her hand raised high, Hilda addressed the warriors, urging them to let their victory cry ring out so powerfully that it would resound through forests and cities alike. Let the world recognize that true warriors dwell here. A mighty roar of voices then shook the sky. Joy swept through the entire village as everyone wholeheartedly celebrated this significant occasion. The elves joined in the excitement, exchanging stories about their forest homeland, their cherished land, and the friends they had just made. Glasses were raised by all, honoring Red Dixon and Mina Dixon. Laughter bubbled around the round table as the hero joined in the merriment. Mina savored the exquisite dishes, lifting her glass of ruby-red wine alongside the other elves. The elf standing nearby watched Red with genuine curiosity and asked what he thought of the drinks and whether he enjoyed them. A smile spread across his face as he replied that the fruit wine grew more delicious with every sip. A radiant smile lit up her face as she explained that it was a sign of Mr. Rita's fondness for wine. With confidence, she picked up the pitcher and refilled the young man's glass once more. In response, he only scratched the back of his head and laughed awkwardly. With a gentle smile, Mina remarked how incredibly delicious the juice and all the food tasted. An elf sitting beside her handed over a plate of treats, inviting her to sample those as well. Grateful for the thoughtful gesture, she expressed her thanks with genuine warmth. Just then, Venus noticed that the festival had returned once more. Redis smiled quietly, acknowledging the truth in her observation. The young elf, curiosity alight in his eyes, asked which celebration they referred to, where it took place, and what exactly they were commemorating. Mina recounted how, just 10 days earlier, a festival had taken place in a place called Morelia to celebrate the triumph over a pack of demonic wolves. Surprise flickered across the face of the elf standing next to Reda upon learning they had already confronted demonic wolves. Reda confirmed her suspicions and mentioned that once again they had received much-needed help. Lost in thought, the young man lifts his gaze to the sky. Though the black dragon has been defeated, a stirring within his heart hints that the true trials are only just beginning. The elf girl extends her hand, palm open. Turning to Mr. Red, she asks him to look at what she is holding. The young man, with a hint of surprise, wonders if it is truly the seed of the same fruit they were served at dinner not long ago. With deep concentration, Oath Maiden slowly closed her eyes. In a gentle whisper, she called upon the spirit of the earth, and at that moment, a glowing, magical mark appeared above her palms. She pleaded earnestly with the spirit, asking it to share its strength for the sake of life. Suddenly, the seed sprouted, and a tiny plant appeared in the girl's hands. Mina, her eyes wide with excitement, announced to Mrs. Adida how incredible it was. The girl responded with a gentle smile, softly explaining that elves possess the power to nurture plants. From her palms, a young sapling began to grow. With a playful wink, Mrs. Adida assures that by summer, the tree will reach the height of its bloom, and in 3 years, it will grow to its fullest size. Meanwhile, the other trees will also become lush with thick, vibrant greenery. An elf approaches, bows his head, and offers an apology to Lord Red for the wait. The village chief explained that the village's savings were rather modest. As a reward, a third of whatever they managed to earn from selling the black dragon's body would be given. A wave of surprise washes over Rida as he asks again if this is truly the third time. Uncertainty begins to gnaw at him, making him wonder if this might be too much. The elder observed that their support had been so substantial, some even joked, that a lifetime of gratitude would barely suffice as repayment. Klaus reminded everyone that, for the sake of the mirror's future, the heroes needed to agree. Red paused in thoughtful silence, then bowed and pledged to look after her. The bladed winds and the enemy's air barrier proved to be a revelation for him. As he edged closer to the dragon, he activated his storage skill. Noticing the immense size of the dragon's body, he realized it would occupy far too much space in his storage. The massive body of the dragon vanishes in an instant, leaving nothing but empty space behind. A subtle smile appears on the hero's face as he decides to keep the freshly severed wing for himself. A sense of satisfaction settles within him, certain that after such a hunt, hunger will be a worry of the past. The elder expressed his gratitude to the young man, acknowledging that his timely intervention had preserved the meat intact. Now they would be able to sell the whole carcass in the human city without suffering any losses. Klaus remarked that the money from the sale would be used to help rebuild the village. Around this time, the possibility of collaborating with humans emerges. Redder expresses enthusiastic agreement, believing such teamwork would prove incredibly intriguing. Hilda mentions that the reward is not yet complete. The elder and the clowns turn to her in surprise, curiosity written on their faces as they try to grasp her intentions. Hilda noticed that the young man appeared to be without a wife. Reed, meanwhile, seemed puzzled by her words. With a playful smile and a finger pointed in his direction, Hilda declared herself, Hilda, guardian of Eder, as his future bride. The elves' celebration came to an abrupt halt, a wave of astonishment rippling through the crowd. Rita stood frozen, his eyes wide and mouth agape in shock. Grabbing his head, he struggled to make sense of the girl's words. Around him, the elves turned to Gilda, one after another, unable to believe she could possibly mean what she had just said. Rumors quickly spread among everyone. People whispered that Hilda had chosen to follow in her elder sister's footsteps. Now, she too had begun to speak about her wish to marry a human. The girl's patience wore thin as irritation built up with every passing second. At last, spinning around to face the elves, she raised her voice and relayed the boy's message, commanding them to approach her at once. At that moment, Nina softly crept up to the elder and gently tugged at his robe. Her curious eyes searched his face, filled with a genuine question. Did Sister Hilda truly have a real sister? A gentle touch on Mina's head was accompanied by an approving nod. The man quietly admitted that perhaps the moment had come to share everything with Mina and her soon-to-be fiancé. At this, Retta asked in surprise if she had heard correctly. Was he really being called her fiancé already? The elders' voices carried the news. Geldegard did indeed have an older sister. Warmth and happiness spread through everyone upon hearing this revelation. Among elves, the birth of a child is an extraordinary event, and the arrival of sisters borders on the miraculous. Such a rare occurrence unfolded half a century ago, when Hildegard celebrated her 260th year. Ignoring the elders' warnings, the eldest sister escapes with her beloved, a man from the world of ordinary people. From that moment on, a deepening hatred toward people took root in Hildegard's heart. Forgiveness was impossible for any man who had dared to take her sister away. From that day forward, elven law forbade any ties with humans. Defying the wishes of her departed sister, Gilda devoted her life to mastering the art of combat. To emphasize her frankness, the girl gave a dismissive snort and declared that all those romance novels were nothing but utter nonsense. In the heart of a young warrior like hers, there was simply no space for such sentimentality. Yet at that very moment, Klaus chose to have some fun and began mimicking Hilda. Fury ignited within her, and she saw his mockery as a direct challenge. Without hesitation, she activated a magical seal, and a sword materialized in her hand. The young man followed the girl, drawing his sword. With a confident smile, he remarked that in close combat, she shouldn't even dream of victory. The clash took on a life of its own. Around them, the other elves cheered for Hilda and Klaus, their faces alight with genuine joy. In the midst of the excitement, Red scratched his head in confusion, and finally gathered the courage to ask if the talk of a wedding was meant in jest. Mina noticed his unease right away and gently inquired if he was feeling all right. The next morning unfolded beneath brilliant sunlight. On the ground, a massive printed symbol became visible, with a harnessed wagon standing nearby. Kido asked Mina if they could play together again next time. With a warm smile, Mina agreed and mentioned she would be looking forward to that moment. Hilda assured Reti that they would miss him, but the loneliness would not last. She promised to return to his side before long. Reti offered an awkward smile, admitting she had brought up the subject once more. A gentle touch brushed against her eyelids, paired with a soft, warm smile. Nothing about this moment felt unusual. Understanding dawned within her as her sister's feelings became clear. Dreaming of a future together with someone you love seemed as natural as breathing. Rita, puzzled, asked if the girl truly meant that he was her beloved. In response, Hilda, her voice trembling with emotion, insisted that she could never joke about such a thing, Her feelings for the young man were completely genuine. Klaus suddenly appeared from behind, once again mocking Gilda and calling her a warrior. Redo struggled to contain his laughter as he watched the scene unfold. Just a moment later, Gilda delivered a powerful blow straight to Klaus's face, prompting Redo to feel genuine sympathy for him. A gentle tap on the shoulder from the village elder is all it takes before everyone begins calling Red, the deer maiden's groom. With a playful smile, the elder assures that if the wedding proves unwelcome, they can always change plans and send the girl home. Red smiles bashfully, and just then, the door shuts loudly behind him, as if sealing his new role for good. The notion of letting Gildo go briefly crossed Reddit's mind, yet quickly proved impossible to accept. Just then, Klaus stepped closer and asked if it was time to move on. With a curt reply, Reddit confirmed that they truly needed to proceed. At last, the conquered caller moved straight toward the heart of the seal. The remaining elves offered their friends sincere wishes of good fortune. Retta and Mina waved farewell with enthusiasm, sharing their final warm words of encouragement. As Red journeyed between realms, memories of dragons and elves crossed his mind with a spark of excitement. News like this was sure to intrigue the guild and Lady Millet. Before long, Mrs. Millet appeared in the hero's path. A cry escaped the girl's lips as she desperately demanded to know how such a thing could have happened. No one offered her any explanation. Everyone vanished in silence, without uttering a single word. At that instant, Red imagined the only thing left for her was to break down in tears and reproach them bitterly. Tears glistened in the girl's eyes as she confessed how worry had plagued her these past days. News of Mina had vanished, as if she had sunk into the earth. 2 whole days without a single word. Mina, joined by Rada, bowed deeply in apology, while Klausted stood quietly beside them, cloaked in his long mantle. The girl quietly voiced her suspicions, sensing trouble had befallen Red and Min. It seemed likely they had finally grown weary of the guild's treatment and decided it was time to leave for good. Anxious thoughts welled up in the girl's mind, each one heavier and more painful than the last. Summoning her courage, she gripped the boy's hand tightly and, unable to hold back her tears, offered heartfelt thanks for his return. Klaus suddenly interrupted their conversation, quickly offering his apologies to the girl. Pulling back his hood, he explained that Red was not in the city at the moment because he was out there trying to save them all. The girl's gaze landed on the stranger's pointed ears, and suddenly the world seemed to blur around her. The realization that a real elf stood before her filled her with genuine astonishment. With her pen poised, the girl began jotting down notes and revealed an unexpected fact. Mr. Redo had once served as a healer in the elven village and had joined the battle against the Black Dragon. She also offered a heartfelt apology for causing such a mess. With an awkward smile, Red nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, the girl explained that the elves intended to sell the Black Dragon to raise money for rebuilding their village. Klaus simply nodded as well, quietly offering his consent. Klaus dialed a number and addressed Mr. Red. At the same time, he reminded the young man of his ability to accumulate. An uncertain smile tugged at the corners of her lips, as her voice hesitantly wondered if the boy might have brought the dragon here. Yet almost immediately she shook her head at the thought, baffled by her own imagination. After all, there was no way the boy could have brought a dragon with him. Suppressing laughter, Red exchanged a glance with the girl, a shared thrill passing between them. Suddenly, Klaus interrupted their moment, making it clear they had brought exactly what was needed. He hoped the guild would truly appreciate their effort. Meanwhile, the girl struggled to hide the fear flickering in her eyes. A desperate cry pierced the air as the girl pleaded with Red, begging him to spare the dragon. Tears streamed down her face while she confessed that no one in the local guild could truly appreciate a creature as wondrous as this. Klaus called it a genuine problem. Rita, however, suggested heading for the capital, even though the idea held no appeal for him. The girl politely asked for a brief wait and assured that she would soon summon experts from the capital guild who could appraise the Black Dragon. Wearing an innocent smile, Red suggested the task to the girl. Meanwhile, Klaus asked if she could give even a rough estimate of how much time it would take. The girl paused in thought, eventually deciding that 2 weeks would be enough. Rising from his seat, Klaus announced his intention to head back to the village. Recalling something important, he mentions the village's decision to seize the opportunity and build connections with the local residents. With hope in his voice, he expresses a willingness to work together with them again in the future. With a nod of understanding, the young woman clasps Klaus's hand firmly. Nearby, a young man promises to inform the elder, assuring them that in 2 weeks they will be awaited. After leaving the Adventurers Guild, the heroes continue on their journey. Klaus contemplates buying some baked fruit for Kata and Adidas. Reda's laughter rings out brightly, and he remarks on what a remarkable father Klaus is. With a warm smile, Klaus responds, pointing out that the boy is managing just as well himself. With a polite bow, the boys show their respect as Klaus expresses his gratitude to Red for his unwavering support, bidding him farewell. In response, Red assures them that their paths will cross again before long. Klaus' gentle hand rests on Mina's head as he promises to bring the cat along next time so they can all play together. Mina nods in delight, clearly enchanted by the suggestion. A unique silence lingered between them as they parted ways. Memories of Klaus calling him father surfaced in Rita's mind, stirring deep reflection. Casting a glance at Mina, realization dawned that an important conversation could no longer be postponed. With gentle care, his hand brushed over the girl's head, but Mina broke into laughter, admitting the touch tickled her. As she turned her gaze toward him, concern flickered in her eyes. Noticing the unease on his face, she quietly asked if something was wrong. Redis realized that upon their return, apologies to Riggs and Melon would be necessary. Mina smiled, her expression showing she completely agreed with him. Night had settled over the world, and everyone had drifted into sleep. Mina was visited by a restless dream, where a hooded girl accused her of thinking only of her own happiness, promising never to forgive her for it. Turning around, Mina caught Red's gaze, a hollow stare set in a face stripped of all emotion, leaving only emptiness behind. From behind, a hooded girl emerged, blood-red tears streaming from her eyes. In a sudden, swift motion, she drew a blade and plunged it straight into Red's neck. Mina managed only a desperate cry, pleading for her to stop. Mina jolted awake, tearing herself free from the clutches of her nightmare. Once she rose from the bed and noticed Red beside her, relief washed over her. Everything had only been a dream. Overwhelmed by emotion, tears streamed down her cheeks as she gently took the boy's hand in hers. The entire night she remained at his side, never letting go of his hand, quietly weeping until the soft glow of morning light filled the room. Early the next morning, Nosha arrived at the Adventurers Guild to meet with Millet. After delivering her report, Retta concluded that no information could be found about anyone searching for Mina. The young woman agreed, mentioning that their headquarters in the royal capital had already reached out to all the local branches. Tilting her head slightly, the girl offered a gentle apology to the young man, admitting she was unable to help. Rita responded with a warm wave of his hand, assuring her that he truly appreciated her efforts and needed no apology. After a while, Retta approaches Mina and apologizes for being late. Since they received no assignments today, they are free to wander through the city. Mina greets the suggestion with a warm smile and eagerly agrees to spend time with him. Their stroll through the city led them to a bustling marketplace, where the shop window displayed a vibrant array of fresh, colorful vegetables that immediately caught the boys' eyes. Their path led them to a candy shop, where a cheerful girl greeted everyone at the door, inviting them inside. Amazement filled Mina as she gazed upon the endless assortment of cookies surrounding her. Rita tasted the sweets and found herself amazed by their incredible flavor. Mina picked up a cookie, took a bite, and was equally surprised. It proved to be delightfully crisp. As their eyes met, Rita sensed that everything was unfolding perfectly. The walk appeared to have lifted Mina's spirits and filled her with newfound confidence. 3 nights ago, her pillow was stained with tears from relentless sobbing. Despair clung to her until dawn, stirred by a dreadful nightmare that haunted her through the dark hours. After leaving the sweet shop, Shivornia and Mina continued on their way and soon found themselves standing by a bridge that arched gracefully over a narrow river. With delight sparkling in her eyes, Mina urged Red to peer into the water. Below the surface, fish darted among the gentle currents, their scales shimmering with an otherworldly beauty. In silent agreement, the young man joined her, sharing the quiet wonder as they watched the luminous reflections ripple across the river. Restless thoughts circled in his mind. No matter how he looked at it, leaving her alone felt wrong. Perhaps the moment had come to reveal the entire truth. The young man's gaze shifts to Mina as he mentions a serious conversation he needs to have with the girl. Mina, taken aback, asks what this important talk could be about. Meanwhile, the girl holds her breath, her tension building as she awaits his words. Rita admitted that he had never married, so raising children was something he'd never experienced. Still, if the girl didn't mind, he would gladly take on the role of a father. That was why he wanted to know if she wished to become a member of his family. With gentle care, the young man softly brushed his hand over Mina's head. Tears welled up and slipped down her cheeks as memories of her family surfaced. Eyes locked on his, Mina quietly asked if he truly believed she could become someone dear to him. In the quiet, a voice rang out, firm and unwavering, declaring that she would never be able to do such a thing. The speaker was the very girl who had recently appeared in Mino's dream. Without hesitation, Retta stepped in front of Mina, shielding her from danger as he directed a clear, unwavering question at the stranger about her identity. The mysterious girl pulled back her hood, revealing her face, while Mina studied her features intently, searching for any clue to this enigmatic woman's true identity. Tears welled in her eyes as she stepped forward to address her sister before the council. For the young man, this encounter brought an unexpected surprise, for standing before him was Mina's own sister. With an indifferent gaze, the girl gave a small nod of agreement and gestured dismissively, indicating that she and Mina had not spoken in quite some time. A gentle smile lit up the girl's face as she explained she was looking for Mina, and delight filled her eyes the moment she realized Mina was safe and sound. The meaning behind her sister's words remained an enigma to Mina. Meanwhile, the girl idly twirled the blade around her finger and spoke the phrase aloud. Still, it was uncertain whether she truly meant that she wished to become part of his family. The dagger slipped from her grasp and hurtled straight toward the boy. Determination rang in her voice, making it clear that such an act could never be forgiven. Quick reflexes lit up the boy's movements as he slipped away from the dagger's path. Red turned to the girl, curious about her next move. With a sly smile, Mina's sister noted that while the boy appeared clumsy, his reactions proved impressively swift. Desperate, Mina snatched up her phone and dialed her sister, hoping for support. On the other end, only anger greeted her. The sister dismissed her plea, declaring that she would deal with the old man first, and Mina's turn would come soon enough. The startled girl barely had time to react before Reed swiftly shielded her with his hand. The man pressed on, demanding she explain herself. Minasu's sister sharply ordered him to be silent and hurled another dagger in his direction. Channeling her magic, Red faced her opponent head-on, deflecting each strike while eyeing the girl warily and asking if she might, by chance, be her sister. After agreeing, the girl introduced herself as Runa. Without a hint of hesitation, she leapt from the rooftop, landed gracefully, and casually remarked that such antics were just like the old man. It soon became clear that she was Mina's sister. Runa's peculiar behavior immediately caught Retta's attention. It was clear that facing such an opponent would not be easy. Her strength seemed boundless. Without wasting a moment, Retta advised Mina to take cover behind the bridge. Silently, Mina nodded and hurried to follow his request. Retta fixed his gaze on the girl and asked bluntly why she wished death upon her younger sister. Without pausing in her relentless barrage of daggers, the girl snapped back with fury, warning him not to speak her name. Calling upon his magic, the young man parried the girl's dagger once more. Yet one of the blades slipped past his defenses and sliced through the armor on his shoulder. A sly smile played on the girl's lips as she remarked that the boy's shield was working more slowly than expected. Meanwhile, Mina turned to her sister, her voice full of plea as she begged her to stop the attacks and quietly asked why she was doing all this in the first place. According to the girl, all the blame lay with Red. She saw him as a cunning individual, intending to use her for his own purposes, and then cast her aside without a second thought. Without hesitation, the girl charged into close combat, directing a barrage of strikes at the young man. Red moved with agility, dodging her attacks while seizing the chance to ask what exactly she meant by accusing him of using others for his own benefit. Launching herself into a swift attack, she spun with determination, only to find her strike effortlessly blocked by a shimmering magical barrier conjured by the young man. A faint smile curved her lips as she remarked, "So your magic truly has grown stronger since meeting Mina." Surprise flashed across Red's face. At that moment, Runa deftly stepped aside and explained that the key was Mina's ability, known simply as the gift. Brilliant, magical sigils bloom before his eyes, unleashing a flurry of radiant daggers one after another. Entranced by the spectacle, Red cranes his neck for a better view and, unable to hold back his intrigue, asks about this mysterious gift, eager to uncover what other secrets this magic might conceal. With a swift move, Red dodges the attack. Runa presses on, her explanation continuing while the young man remains fully aware that Minnie's true power lies in strengthening anyone close to her. Red shrugged off his cloak, his gaze fixed thoughtfully ahead. In a quiet voice, he admitted that he had just realized the reason he recently managed to heal a dozen people at once, and how he had succeeded in severing an entire dragon's wing. The young man's words left Runa utterly bewildered, her thoughts tangled in confusion as she struggled to grasp what he meant. Mina suddenly intervened, drawing everyone's attention as she pleaded with her sister to stop. Her voice trembled with urgency as she insisted that Retta was not a bad person. Rune responded by conjuring a magical seal, then hurled a dagger so it landed at Mina's feet. With a cold glare, she raised her voice, reminding Mina that she had already warned her she would be the next target. Noticing that the girl had been watching him for several days in a row, the boy voiced his surprise. In response, Runa explained that their family bond made her naturally interested in her brother's affairs. Runa resolved to take matters into her own hands. First, she would rescue the girl from that filthy boy, and then she would bring her home. The verdict had been delivered. His life was meant to end here. Blades thrown by the woman continued to rain down, each one aimed with deadly precision. Red darted and twisted, desperately trying to dodge, but one strike slipped past his defenses and found its mark. A wave of intense fear swept over Mina, prompting her to call Reddy at once. Hoping to ease her mind, Reddy spoke gently, assuring her that he was perfectly fine. Just then, Runa joined the conversation and calmly suggested that it would be safest for her and Mina to return home together. Rune clung to the belief that forgiveness had the power to unite them, convinced that if they returned together, both would be granted pardon. In contrast, Mina's voice rang out in protest, fiercely insisting she would never go back there under any circumstances. Mina's cry shattered the silence as she pleaded with her sister to explain what had happened to her. Meanwhile, Reddist quietly began tending to his wounded shoulder, admitting that he didn't understand what was going on. However, it was clear to him that Mina had no intention of coming back to this place. Mina's expression during the encounter revealed the horror of the place Runa calls home. At first, Runa threatened Mina with death, but now she has begun referring to herself as Mina's home. The young man noticed a contradiction between the girl's words and her actions, suspecting that even she might not fully understand her own feelings. Runa abruptly cut him off, ordering him to be quiet. Suddenly, she stormed toward him, declaring that no one cared about his opinion. With a sharp wave of her hand, she told him to disappear. Rita extended a hand to halt Runa, urging her to listen closely. At that same moment, Mina called out to her sister, pleading with her not to harm their father. Rona suddenly halted, refusing to attack Red. Tears welled up in her eyes as she began to cry, voicing her sorrow over the unfairness she felt. The dagger slipped from her grasp as her voice trembled with a silent question of why. Suddenly, the world blurred before her eyes. Clutching her head, she collapsed to the ground. A wave of concern washed over Red as he asked what had happened, only to be met with an angry shout telling him to stay away. Runa halted, pulled up her hood, and watched intently as the girl's eyes began to shift once more. Redidi failed to grasp what had just occurred, but he immediately noticed a change in the girl's expressions. At that exact moment, Mina rushed toward the young man. Mina's gentle gaze fell upon Red as she quietly inquired about his well-being. With a slight motion, Red rubbed his arm and assured her that he felt more or less fine. With gentle care, the hero brushed a hand over the girl's head, quietly asking if the recent ordeal had caused her any harm. Mina offered a sincere smile and reassured him that she was perfectly fine. A gentle blush spread across Minnie's cheeks as she confessed to Red. When she heard him ask if the girl wanted to become his family, her heart overflowed with happiness. Quietly, the same yearning grew inside her, a wish to become family to this boy. Yet her own sister remained an undeniable part of her family. On this particular day, the girl seemed different. Her behavior was out of the ordinary, stirring a sense of unease in those around her. Tears welled up in her eyes as desperation colored her voice, while she pleaded with the young man to save her sister. Radha wrapped Mina in a comforting embrace, reassuring her that everything would be all right and promising to find a solution. Later that night, as darkness settled over everything, Mina rested peacefully in her bed. Meanwhile, the young man sat at the table, fully absorbed in his book. Only a single thought echoed in his mind. Action was needed now. Waiting any longer was no longer an option. Mina's memories drifted back to the harsh days spent deep within the underground organization, sharing a small space with her sister. Before meeting Radha, life had felt like an unending trial. Her extraordinary ability, known as the gift, amplified the strength of anyone nearby. Because of this, she remained shackled each day, forced to use her talent on members of the organization. Mastering this ability at will remained beyond her reach. Disappointed by the lack of progress, the organization soon lost interest in her. Her entire existence revolved around serving as a hostage for her older sister. While one was shaped from childhood into a lethal assassin with extraordinary abilities, the other remained by her side, a mere pawn, waiting in reserve for someone else's game. Around that time, she received orders to track down and eliminate individuals deemed undesirable by the organization. Eventually, the assignment demanded that she dispose of a prominent figure from a rival faction. Escaping this organization would have been effortless. Strength was never the issue. Yet the only tether that kept me here was Mina's presence by my side. With all the guards lost in their drunken stupor, an opportunity finally emerged, long awaited and rare. Had Mina been alone, Runa would have escaped ages ago, but Mina was the one they kept under watch. It was Mina who, on this very evening, managed to slip the keys into her possession. At last, the chains gave way, granting her a long-awaited taste of freedom. Deep inside, hope burned bright. Nothing could stand in her sister's path now, and she silently longed for the girl to escape as well. The following day, Red and Mina left the city behind. As his gaze swept across the distant horizon, Red paused at last and declared with quiet certainty that they had found the perfect spot. Calling out to Runa, the young man invited her to step outside, anticipation flickering in his eyes for her swift arrival. True to his hopes, the girl appeared before him almost instantly, surprise written across her face at being summoned so abruptly. A sly smile played on Runa's lips as she teased, wondering if he had finally decided to hand over Mina without any arguments or resistance. The sisters exchanged glances, their silent conversation interrupted when Retta spoke up. He insisted that things were not unfolding the way they assumed. His visit today, he explained, served only one purpose: to help the girl recover. Runa simply shrugged in confusion, unable to grasp what he meant. With a swift motion, her blade flashes free as contempt sharpens her gaze. Clearly, this boy has truly made up his mind to come here and meet his end. A faint hint of mockery colors her voice as she asks whether he genuinely believes that his barrier could ever withstand a real blow. Rita insisted that the situation was not as it seemed, and for this reason the young man resolved to act with greater seriousness today. He called upon the spirit of fire, and in that instant, dozens of blazing fireballs erupted, scattering across the entire area. Astonishment flickered across Runa's face as she turned to Red and asked what had just happened. She admitted that never before had she witnessed such extraordinary magic, though she added quietly that power like that would only seal his fate. With a swift motion, the girl hurled a handful of daggers toward Rita, confidently declaring her determination to outpace him and claim victory in battle. Summoning his power of storage, the young man causes every dagger hurled by the charging girls to vanish instantly, as if swallowed by thin air. Genuine astonishment flickers across Runoi's face. A fleeting thought passes through her mind, recognizing just how unsettling such an ability could become. When action became necessary, Reda politely asked the girl to wait for a moment. Then, with firm resolve, he commanded the fireballs to engulf the enemy in blazing flames, and immediately afterwards summoned a relentless storm of fiery projectiles. Searing spheres of fire shot toward Runa. Gritting her teeth, the girl sprang into action, darting aside to dodge the dangerous onslaught. A torrent of blazing fireballs surged toward Rune, striking the ground and instantly erupting into a burst of flames and smoke. With a swift motion, the girl dodged the blow and hurled her blade straight at the boy. Quick to react, he activated his storage skill and caught the dagger mid-air, sending it directly into his inventory. Flaming orbs shot straight toward Rune as the boy unleashed a merciless assault. Wasting no effort on futile throws, the girl made up her mind in an instant. Rather than strike from afar, she would close the distance and settle this with her own hands, determined to take his head herself in close combat. Suddenly, behind the boy, Runa appeared without a sound. Mina clung tightly to Red's cloak and called out to her sister, her voice trembling with fear. In that instant, Rita glanced back and instantly conjured a barrier of swirling wind. The destruction struck directly at the seal buried within the earth. The older boy's unexpected trap left the girl stunned. A sudden surge of magic swept her off her feet and lifted her swiftly high into the air. Red clenched his fists, determination flashing in his eyes as he decided that from this moment, capturing the girl was within his grasp. With a crisp command, he summoned a new ability. Chains sprang forth from the air, their links snapping into place, ready to bind their target securely. As soon as Runa began to fall, the red-haired youth darted forward and caught her in his arms. Relief washed over Mina, who let out a quiet sigh. Runa, however, remained frozen in terror, her voice trembling as she screamed and pleaded with the boy to put her down at once. Turning to Mina, she calmly explained the events that had transpired and revealed why the girl had left her side. Mina, however, responded with clear conviction, insisting that the reason had been entirely different. Runa promised to take the girl home and end her life. Rita, however, assured her that the girl had done her best, and now everything was fine. Runa could not grasp the meaning behind the young man's words. Rated offered no explanations, choosing silence as he activated the seal on his palm and summoned the magic to break the control. His hand settled firmly against the girl's face. Faces emerged in Runa's memory, those who had praised her for putting an end to the leader of the enemy organization. Seizing the staff of power, the man unleashed its energy. A call rang out, crisp and commanding, as the name of the girl, Runa Pierce, echoed in the air. The next command carried all the weight of authority. Bring her sister, Mina Pierce, back home. Survival demanded eliminating anyone who stood in the way. Fear gripped Runa as she struggled to make sense of the situation. The moment words escaped her lips, the world around her blurred, and reality faded into uncertainty. Her scream rang out just as the man's staff shattered to splinters in his hands. Furious, he proclaimed that he had lost his precious staff because of the runaway. Pain twisted through the girl, forcing her to endure silent torment. Then, unexpectedly, the color of her eyes shifted. After some time had passed, she found herself in the heart of the city, standing on the rooftop of a tall building, like a shadow among the evening lights. A sly smile danced across her face as she announced that she had finally found Mina and now needed to bring the girl home. At that very moment, Rune's voice rang out with desperation, pleading not to return Mina. Pain made her tremble once more as feverish words spilled from her lips about bringing Mina back home. Suddenly, the color of her eye shifted. Red kept his hand pressed to the girl's face as silent tears streamed down her cheeks. Gentle sobs escaped her lips as she called out for her sister. Memories of Mina's bright, genuine smile when she stood beside the boy deepened the ache in her heart. The moment real weakness washed over Runa, a second self stirred within her mind, a presence that reveled in her awakening, delighted that the girl had finally regained consciousness. Runa clutched her head in confusion, unable to grasp why she was here or what was happening around her. Glancing aside, her eyes caught the gentle way Rada stroked Mina's hair. A wave of resentment surged through Rune. All the affection seemed to center on Mina. Everything about it felt deeply unfair. Darkness, like a sinister aura, crept gradually around the girl. She erupted in a cry, insisting that everything happening to her was utterly unjust. Yet from the depths of her mind, another voice emerged, calm and icy. It countered her outburst, reminding her that the world had no place for such feelings, and letting emotions dictate her actions would only lead her down a perilous road. Darkness pressed in from all sides, becoming unbearable. Desperation filled her voice as she pleaded for it all to end, sensing the black aura dragging her further down. Injustice burned within, sharp and inescapable. Rune glanced at Mina, and with a jolt of realization understood there was no way to restrain these forces. In that moment, a single wish took hold, a silent hope that someone might save her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she uttered a chilling threat, vowing to take their lives. Just then, Rita's warm hand gently rested against Runa's cheek. Overwhelmed by despair, the girl cried out for help. Red's bold voice rang out, promising to rescue the girl without delay. Although the spell still lingered, the darkness clouding Runa's vision suddenly began to crack and soon shattered completely. The girl lifted her gaze to the sky, where the sun shone brilliantly and the red-cheeked one smiled nearby. Tears slipped from Runa's eyes, and she made no attempt to hold them back. At that moment, Mina's voice echoed through the air as she called out for Runo. Startled, Runo sprang to the side and quickly warned Mina to stay back. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she confessed to having said so many hurtful things. Mina's reassuring voice rang out, making it clear that everything was fine and that she truly understood. Runa offered her apologies to Mina. Witnessing Mina's happiness in this place stirred a sharp pang of envy deep within her chest. An immediate thought arose. Why couldn't she find happiness herself? These reflections ignited a genuine anger within Runa. Mina darted over to Runa, her words tumbling out in a rush as she apologized for running off alone. In response, Runa simply brushed her hand gently through Mina's hair and reassured her sister that there was no blame to bear. Without hesitation, Runa asked Red to look after Mina, as she needed to return immediately. A reason to return must be crafted, perhaps simply claiming that Mina has passed away. In the end, she will undoubtedly come up with some story. Panic seized Nina, leaving the astro nurse unsure if she had truly promised to return and come up with a solution. Meanwhile, Rita could not hold back and shouted that she would never allow such a thing to happen. Runa calmly explained that this was essential. Otherwise, they would soon attract attention and be pursued. With quiet determination, she promised to find a way to shake off their pursuers and vowed to protect the girls. Anxiety gripped Runa as she pressed her lips together and clenched her fist, fear coursing through her body. Red suggested she stay by his and Mina's side. Mina quietly confessed her hope that the three of them could truly become a family. And so, Rune had become a part of their family. A sly smile played on the girl's lips as she noted how the boy had suggested something entirely out of the ordinary. With a firm grip on her shoulders, Rita reassures her that it doesn't matter if that confession ever happened. What truly counts is that Runa saw her happy. Driven by this very desire, he pledged to bring happiness to Runa. Approaching her with sincerity, he asked if she would become part of their family. The request caught her so off guard that words failed her, and she stood speechless in astonishment. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she finally gave her answer. In that moment, all she could do was place her trust in the young man. Mina threw herself into Runa's embrace, arms wrapped around each other as tears mingled with laughter when the girls rushed together. With a shy voice, Runa apologized to Mina for frightening her so badly. Rada soon joined their embrace, her gentle arms folding around them while a soft laugh escaped her lips. There, in the heart of the field, the friends huddled close, sharing warmth and comfort. A gentle breeze played through their clothes, softening the moment even further. After a while, Mino had wrapped her arms around Red's neck, laughter bubbling from her lips as she affectionately called him Dad. Nearby, Mino's friend observed with surprise how warmly and gently she spoke to Red. At that moment, the man inquired about the mysterious girl's name. She replied with a cheerful spark, introducing herself as Runa Dixon, Mina's sister. Meeting her new acquaintance filled Runa with genuine happiness. Without warning, Red turned to Rooney. Curiosity sparkled in her eyes as she wondered what was on his mind. Red admitted he had been thinking about what she might call him. Fingers fidget restlessly with the threads of the game, as Runa sinks into thoughtful contemplation. A moment later, a gentle smile appears on her lips, the instant she chooses to call him father. The suggestion struck the man as fitting. In response, Runa pointed out that there had already been a proposal, so what else could it be called? Surprised, the young man learned that it was Rita who had proposed to Runa. Rita immediately objected, insisting the girl was still far too young for such matters. Yet Runa only stuck out her tongue with a playful grin and pointed out that by next month she would be old enough. Runa suggested they head to the guild without delay. Retta, surprised, remarked on her newfound enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Mina found herself delighted to see her sister so full of life. As the stranger watched them, it became clear to him that the entertainment was about to take an intriguing turn. Sharing a hearty laugh with the young man beside him, he embraced the anticipation of unfolding events. After some time, the heroes returned to the guild to share their story with Miss Millet. With a gentle smile, Millet turned to Mina and confessed how truly delighted she was that the girl had been able to reunite with her sister. Mina offered heartfelt thanks for all the support she had received. Suddenly, Runa broke into the conversation and turned to Mrs. Millet. With curiosity in her voice, she asked what had happened. Runa then explained that they would be returning next month. The sudden arrival of the young woman at the doorstep drew a surprised lift of the woman's brows. Her declaration rang clear. She had returned not as a daughter, but as someone determined to become a wife. Mrs. Mila received the announcement with delight, warmly remarking that it was wonderful news. Surprise caught Rita off guard. Before he could respond, Runa interrupted, explaining that the boy had volunteered to become her family, hoping to bring her happiness. Delighted by the offer, she eagerly accepted. Embarrassment washed over the girl, prompting her to spin nervously in place as she struggled to hide her emotions. Uncertainty gnawed at her, compelling her to ask if the young man had truly forgotten everything. Madame Mill responded with a mocking laugh, openly admitting that she was eagerly anticipating the events still to come. Tears welled up in Red's eyes as the realization dawned that the situation was slipping beyond his grasp. Turning to Miss Mill, he desperately sought to clarify exactly which place she referred to. A week had passed since Runa and Mina had officially become sisters. The three of them strolled through the city, with Mina skipping ahead, full of cheer. Suddenly, the lively noise of the street was cut short by a call. Elliot, addressing Red as his brother, sounded surprised in his message, asking if they were out together once again. Rita crossed paths with Elliot and Tex, bringing news that someone had been injured during the cleanup, a task from which they were just returning. Tex mentioned that the days had grown noticeably warmer lately, leading to the recent appearance of monsters. He urged everyone to exercise caution. With a mischievous wink, Runa brushed off the matter as trivial. Even if those prisoners had managed an escape, she promised she could have handled them with ease. Her confident nod toward Red invited his agreement, and he confirmed her claim with a quiet assent. Encouragement sparked within Tech. Reddit, meanwhile, remarked that, as a father, he simply could not allow Rune to overexert herself. Elliot observed that Reddit seemed unaware of just how energetic Rune truly was. The man suddenly grabbed the boy's arm and suggested they head off together to a charming spot for a drink. In response, Red quietly admitted that he didn't mind, but truly had no idea what was going on. What unsettled him most, however, was the thought of his daughters finding out about this escapade. At that moment, Runa broke into the conversation, her impatience clear as she reminded everyone that hunger wasn't just gnawing at her. Mina, too, was already dreaming of lunch. Wrapping his arms around himself, Elliot shivered and confessed that now he understood everything about the boy. Red let out a nervous chuckle, remarking that each seemed more frightening than the last. The greatest sorrow for Ellie lay in imagining Mina casting a scornful glance his way, her voice turning cold as she told him to stay away. At that moment, Mina turned to Red. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head, apologized to the girls, and explained that he was in a hurry. After saying his goodbyes to his friends, he raised a hand in farewell and walked away. While strolling through the city, Runa approached a young man and, unable to hide her curiosity, inquired about the marvelous place. Taken aback and flustered, Redder nearly choked in surprise. With a sudden movement, the boy clutched his head, hastily explaining that a friend had told him this place served the best drinks. Roonies offered a sly smile and, seizing the moment while the redhead glanced away, leaned in to murmur something to Mina. She gave a small nod, then quietly approached the boy and gently tugged at his cloak. A deep blush spread across Mina's cheeks as she shyly admitted to Red that this was rather improper. Silence hung between them, with Red standing motionless, struck speechless by her honesty. Curiosity sparkled in Mina's eyes as she turned to Runa, wondering if she had said everything correctly. Runa responded with a gentle laugh, softly patting Mina on the head. Rita simply remarked that he definitely wouldn't go there. After a while, the courtyard filled with the soft rustling of brooms as Mina and the young woman busied themselves with tidying up. Delicate scarves concealed their hair, while their long dresses modestly draped their figures. As Rune and her husband busied themselves with preparing a meal, a young woman suddenly burst into the room. Breathless with excitement, she announced that she had overheard talk about a man named Rita Dixon, who was now staying with them. The silence of the room breaks as a young man leans over a book at his desk, deeply absorbed in the study of magical practices. Suddenly the air trembles with the unexpected sound of hurried footsteps. Mina and Runa entered the room together. One of them announced that Red had a visitor, and somewhat surprisingly, the guest was a girl. Red scratched the back of his head, visibly flustered, and asked who she might be. Mina, looking uncertain, admitted that she had forgotten to ask the girl's name. Runik's laughter rang out, shattering the silence as he teased that perhaps she was their father's ex-girlfriend. Red spun around, warning that he would get angry if the joke continued. Instead of stopping, Runik only became more amused, eager to find out if there was any truth to his mischievous guess. Red descended the stairs, and a smile instantly brightened the girl's face as she noticed him. No effort was made to hide her delight. Once, she had been a part of Red's team. An unexpected encounter with Aisha al-Ro left Reda genuinely astonished. Seeking to make sense of the situation, he asked her why she was here. With a quiet sigh, Aisha folded her arms across her chest and sternly advised him not to ask unnecessary questions. News of Hill casting out the boy quickly reached the girl, and without a moment's hesitation she left the ranks of the Black Wolves as well. Red felt a wave of surprise wash over him when he heard, so soon, the newest member had already decided to walk away. Aisha recalled Gilles' words echoing in her mind, reminding her that the door would always remain open if something did not suit her. She shared this thought with the young man, recounting how she had left everything behind after hearing those words. With a furrowed brow, Runya noted that no one would dismiss a healer from the group without good reason. Something unusual must have crossed their leader's mind. An unexpected idea sparked in Runa's mind, and a sly smile appeared on her face as she remarked how the boy always waved his hands and chatted with girls. Her words made the boy turn around abruptly, eager to insist that she had gotten it all wrong. In truth, Nocto and Rosalia felt a certain fondness for Gil. When Mina mentioned Aisha, the girl blushed and hesitated, uncertain whether the conversation truly concerned her. Before the girl could mention that someone had visited Reed, the young man swiftly covered Aisha's mouth with his hand, urging her to remain silent. What mattered most to him in that moment was discovering the reason for her sudden arrival. Solitary journeys no longer brought any benefit to Aisha. When she happened upon a notice about resettlement, the idea of trying her luck in Amarus took root. Yet in the event of real trouble, the cost of failure would be far too great. Upon joining the civil police, the young woman secured a position as a guard stationed at the gates of a wealthy estate. Fortune had indeed guided her to just the right place. Noticing Aisha had become a guard, Retta felt genuinely happy for her, knowing that work with the police promised a steady income. In response, Aisha spoke with quiet determination, expressing her wish to repay the village that had raised her as an orphan. A gentle smile plays on the girl's lips as she shares an intriguing rumor. Word has it that the young man managed to defeat a real dragon right in the heart of the elven settlement. Could such a tale truly be believed? A faint tension flickered across Runace's face, hidden behind a polite smile, as she asked again to be sure she had understood about dragons and elves. Minas answered with a quiet grin, admitting that his father had truly invested much effort into making it happen. Aisha paused in astonishment, having convinced herself that it was merely someone with the same surname. Yet the truth struck her swiftly. Everything turned out to be real. An uncertain smile crept onto Rita's face as she awkwardly scratched the back of her head, admitting that she had wanted to surprise them. Aisha and Runa exchanged looks of genuine astonishment. For them, this truly was unexpected. Arms folded across her chest, Aisha let out a measured breath and remarked that, unlike Gil, this young man had accomplished quite a lot in just 3 weeks. Rena wondered if black wolves had any way to rise in rank. With unwavering seriousness, Aisha explained that this was simply not possible. Shock sweeps over Red as he learns that Gil and Gilliam have turned to banditry, and now a relentless manhunt pursues them. The mystery deepens, with the reasons behind their actions shrouded in uncertainty. A wave of astonishment swept over Aisha when an opportunity arose to speak with Rosalie. During their conversation, she discovered that Rosalie had already left the Black Wolves. In addition, Rosalie revealed another surprising piece of news. Nikto had also parted ways with the organization. After expelling Red, Gil and Gilliam carried on with their old habits. Their tactics and equipment remained unchanged. Because of this, treatment costs continued to drain their funds, and the gravest consequence lurking ahead was the possibility of death. Driven by madness and fearlessness, Gil charged at the monsters, utterly convinced he needed no help from the one in red. The air always echoed with declarations that things would work out without him. The girls believed he was far too fixated on this idea, finding it nearly impossible to admit his own dependence. Aisha inquired whether Rosalie harbored any affection for Gil. Rosalie responded with a gentle smile, admitting that she had once loved him, but now considered him nothing more than a hopeless case. Aisha recounted the tale to Red, mentioning that on top of everything, they also had to spend money on medical supplies. In the end, with no other options left, they borrowed what they could and escaped, only to find themselves crossing paths with bandits. A strained smile flickered across Runace's face, while Mina and Retta stood frozen in shock. Retta scratched the back of his head, his dismay over the situation palpable. Memories of Gil resurfaced. Though often the embodiment of restless mischief, he was at heart a warm and amiable companion. Sadness settled on the young man's face, and Mina, noticing his mood, offered a few gentle words in hopes of lifting his spirits. She pointed out that, under these circumstances, there was nothing he could do to change the situation. Aisha chimed in, echoing Mina's sentiments and agreeing that this was indeed the case. Without warning, Aisha shifted the conversation in a new direction, her eyes sparkling with curiosity as she glanced over at Mina and Runa. The presence of these charming girls beside him had clearly caught her attention. With a sly smile playing on her lips, she inquired if the boy truly had kidnapped them, casually mentioning she could report it to the police. Rita, visibly annoyed, protested, baffled that such an idea had even crossed the girl's mind. Aisha burst into laughter, waving off the moment as nothing more than a silly joke, and assured the boy there was no reason for concern. Runa's cheeks turned a sudden shade of red as she admitted that he had stolen her heart. Aisha's amusement only grew, her laughter ringing out even louder. Introducing herself as Aisha al-Shro, a former member of the Reda group, Aisha's smile grew warmer as she confessed how much she truly enjoyed meeting Runa and Mina. With a gentle smile, the girl introduces herself as Mina Dixon, daughter of Red. Standing at her side, Runa gives a playful wink and announces that she is Mina's sister and Red's wife. She reveals her full name with cheerful pride, Runa Dixon. Without delay, Aisha turned to the young man and admitted her confusion. Redis spoke plainly, declaring that neither of the girls was his real daughter. Aisha nodded toward the other girl, noting her delicate beauty, and wondered aloud who she might be. The girl introduced herself as Meilin and expressed an interest in hearing their stories, just as the man excused himself for a moment. A realization dawned on Aisha. Meilin was his daughter. Intrigued, Mina admitted her own curiosity about Red's adventures. Aisha gently asked if he would mind sharing some memories. Red simply shrugged, suggesting that nothing remarkable had happened on his travels, and there was little worth telling. Reluctant to speak about it himself, he would have been genuinely relieved if Aisha stepped in and explained on his behalf. Renoa's curiosity flared at the mention of Red's romantic escapades, and she confessed without hesitation that this subject intrigued her the most. Red immediately turned to Aisha, quietly asking her to avoid bringing up such a sensitive topic. Aisha promised to share the story of how Rita had saved her. Meanwhile, the young man searched himself in vain for any hint of darkness, convinced that something about him was amiss. Aisha's thoughts drifted back to where it all began, recalling that fateful meeting. Aisha's sudden outburst shattered the silence as memory rushed back. Her presence here was not by chance. Her mentor had given clear orders. Find the healer named Retta Dixon and bring him back. The revelation clearly caught Retta off guard. According to the young woman, all matters within the guild had already been discussed, and a carriage waited by the entrance. She insistently urged them to leave with her at once. Confusion settled over the council, as they had no idea what she was talking about, or which master the stranger kept mentioning. Sometime later, Reed found herself traveling in a cart alongside Mina, Runa, and Aisha. With genuine curiosity, Reed asked Aisha what matter could be so important to her master that it warranted hitching up a cart for the journey. Who can say? Mused Aisha, her gaze thoughtful. The boy had turned into an enigma, a puzzle she could no longer decipher despite once feeling confident she understood him. Now, only one thing remained clear. She had an order to follow and needed to bring the girl back to her senses. It seemed likely that something deeply secretive lay hidden within this entire affair. Without warning, Mina poked her head out the window and asked Aisha what kind of person her master was. A thoughtful pause followed before Aisha admitted that he was rather eccentric. Mina listened to her answer, but still could not grasp exactly what Aisha meant. With a gentle smile, Aisha noted that if people truly believed him to be a noble, he would likely never have left his family estate to build his own city right on the border. No one bothered to ask, as if there was nothing remarkable about it. Aisha noticed that he always accompanied the police on their patrols. During the construction of the outer walls and living quarters, he often lent a hand to the dwarves, working side by side with them. Runa, while watching his efforts, would often remark that there was something truly unusual about him. Aisha, on the other hand, speculated that perhaps he had already met Rita somewhere in the past. After some time had passed, a grand mansion came into view before Minase. With a nod, Aisha confirmed that this was indeed the master's residence. Before that, a sudden urge stirs within her to take action. As the carriage rolls forward, it abruptly comes to a halt. Confused, the heroes glance around, searching for the cause of this unexpected stop. With a heavy sigh, Runa quietly announced the arrival of visitors. Retta turned to her in surprise, trying to grasp what her words meant. Wasting no time, the young man leaned out the carriage window to see what was happening outside. Suddenly, a crowd gathered before the carriage and ordered the driver to halt. The coachman noted with surprise that these people truly intended to show mercy, having agreed to bring the procession to a stop. The sword ignited in his hands as he calmly invited them to show some courtesy and meet their end. With icy determination, Aisha drew her weapon and demanded to know whether the man even realized whose wagon this was and where it was headed. A frown deepened on the stranger's face as he replied that it meant nothing to him, since a healer was seated inside. The silence shattered as a sudden question echoed, demanding whether they truly needed a healer. Runa stood poised atop the carriage roof, her voice steady as she declared that her answer would be no. Suddenly caught off guard, Radu hesitated, while Aisha scolded Runa loudly, upset by her recklessness, knowing how dangerous it was. Before anyone could react, Runa vanished from the roof of the wagon. A harsh, jarring noise sliced through the air. Aisha turned around and caught sight of Runa standing by the man's lifeless body, sword in hand, the weapon that had brought his life to an abrupt end. Overwhelmed by utter weakness, the man collapsed and slipped into unconsciousness. Aisha glanced around in confusion, struggling to make sense of what had just unfolded. Carefree and candid, Runa stood calmly, idly tossing a curved dagger from hand to hand. Suddenly, a man appeared at her side. He hurled an insult and, wasting no time, swung his sword straight at the girl. In that instant, Runa hurled her dagger directly at his throat. The men stared in bafflement, unable to comprehend who this girl could be. All three lunged at her at once. With effortless grace, Runa sprang forward and with a single precise motion, struck down all three opponents by targeting the backs of their heads. The remaining bandits stood frozen in shock, while a devilish smile blossomed on Runa's face as she turned to face them. With merciless precision, the girl swiftly dispatched her opponents, seizing the attention of everyone around her. Aisha revealed that lately, rumors had been spreading about an exceptionally powerful young woman who had joined the ranks of the police and adventurers, single-handedly exterminating monsters. Silvery hair and dark skin marked the girl they had just glimpsed. She fit the description perfectly. Perhaps this was the one mentioned in their conversation. Aisha's desperate cry filled the air as she begged Runa to spare the attackers, insisting it was enough to stop them and leave the rest to the police. Meeting her plea with a faint, almost amused smile, Runa calmly pressed her foot against the thug's neck and reassured her that they were only unconscious. A short while later, the bandits lay on the ground, their hands securely tied. Approaching with a bright smile, Runa looked to Red as if awaiting a nod of approval. The gentle touch on Rune's head from the boy and Mina brought a delighted laugh to her lips. Rita praised her diligence, but gently reminded her not to overexert herself. Unable to resist, Rune giggled cheerfully. Aisha brought their conversation to a halt, reminding everyone that from here on, the police would handle everything. The moment to depart had arrived, so Rita and the girls climbed into the carriage, ready to continue on their own path. Before the young man stretched the majestic manner of the Lord, so grand and impressive that it nearly took his breath away. Mina called for her sister, urging her to admire the enchanting scenery. Rune found herself wrapped in wonder, amazed by the sheer number of houses in the city. Her gaze soon landed on a nearby shop owned by the dwarves Mastaschio, which immediately caught her interest. Rita mentioned to Aisha that the cityscape suits them better than a grand estate. With a laugh, Aisha agreed with him. Some time passed before their journey brought them to the grand estate of Aisha's mentor. Gleaming doors slowly swung open to reveal a dignified man standing at the threshold. With a warm demeanor, he welcomed Mr. Redixon and the young companions. Introducing himself as Mazel, the butler graciously welcomes the guests inside, announcing that the master is already awaiting their arrival. The heroes make their way down a long corridor, which leads to a grand hall with towering doors. Inside, a young man and woman await their arrival. With open arms and a smile, the young man warmly announces how delighted he is to see Redixon. The lord of Amert city introduced himself as Tita Amert Rodenbert. Standing beside him, a young woman added her own name, Gabriel Rodenbert. Extending a warm hand, Rita gives the boy a friendly handshake and introduces himself as Retta Dixon. The girls, wearing gentle smiles, each share their names in turn. Settling onto the sofas, everyone waited in tense silence. Tita explained that the guests had already been informed about the recent events. With Gavriel by her side, she bowed her head politely. The young man offered for their guests to begin by hearing their apologies regarding the current situation. With a sense of wonder, Runa noticed the nobles bowing their heads to common folk, as if those people truly held some worth. At the same time, memories returned of Tito's eccentricity, just as everyone had always described. With a gentle smile, Rita quietly asked them to lift their heads, graciously accepting their apologies. A warm smile lit up Tita's face as she expressed her gratitude to Mr. Red Dixon for visiting the estate. The young man appeared genuinely amiable. With her hand resting gently on her chest, Rita turned to Mr. Rodenberg and calmly inquired about the purpose behind his invitation. A warm smile spread across the young man's face as he reassured his guests that formalities were unnecessary. Addressing him simply as the locals did, Tita, would suffice. Accepting the suggestion with genuine pleasure, Rita politely called him Mr. Tita. A grave expression settles over Tita's face. Wasting no time on unnecessary words, he turns the conversation to what truly matters, asking the boy to heal his sister, Valyria. As the saying goes, seeing something once is better than hearing about it 100 times. The host invites the guests to continue on and gestures for their escort to proceed. Next, Mr. Tita addresses Mazel, and the butler, silently agreeing, takes the lead and guides the visitors through the estate. The group ascends to a room at the back of the manor. Mr. Tita mentions that his sister's chambers are located further down the corridor. Butler Maisel turns toward Rune and Mina, inviting them to follow him. Before long, he treats them to fragrant tea and a tempting array of sweets. Both girls stare in surprise, questioning the meaning behind this unexpected hospitality. Suddenly, Havril appears, casting an apologetic glance and insisting that scenes like this are not suitable for young girls. With a grin, Runa clasps her hands behind her head, signaling her agreement. Mina nods as well, offering her father a heartfelt wish for good luck. The young man waves to the girls as he takes his leave. The question about the sister's condition lingered in the air as Retta listened intently to the silence. Tito struggled to find the right words, but Gabriel interrupted, calmly explaining that everything had happened a year ago. That evening, far from the city in a cozy house by the lakeshore, the whole family gathered for a shared dinner. Warmth and happiness filled the air, and everyone felt content. Suddenly, the scene took a dark turn, when terrifying flames abruptly swallowed her body. According to Mr. Tito, it seemed as though the girl had been consumed by flames, which ultimately plunged her into a deep coma that has persisted for an entire year. Faced with Rennie's inquiry about a doctor's examination, Mr. Tita let out a weary sigh before confirming that the girl had indeed been seen by medical professionals. Even renowned healers from the capital had arrived, but not a single one managed to offer any real help. One day, Mr. Tita heard rumors of an extraordinary healer who had recently joined the Adventurers Guild. That same evening, a young man knocked on Sister Valyria's door and quietly informed her that it was time to go to her room. Rita steps into the room first, her demeanor marked by a quiet apology to Ms. Valyria for the unannounced visit. Nearby, the girl lies silently on the bed, lost in her own world. The boy was caught off guard by an unexpected sight. A delicate girl lay resting on a massive bed, while two companions stood steadfastly by her side. At first glance, the girl looked as if she were merely resting. Such innocence lingered on her face. Then Gabriel appeared nearby, gently tugging at the blanket and, in a soft voice, asked Valyria for forgiveness. With a gentle motion, the blanket slips away, revealing Valeria's body covered in burns. Only a delicate nightgown clings to her, resting lightly against her skin to spare her any further pain from the wounds. Retta approached Mr. Teed and politely requested permission to examine the girl. The young man nodded, granting his approval. Moving closer with deliberate care, Retta offered the girl a gentle apology. Introducing himself as Rhett Dixon, the young man explained that he had come to help her recover. As he examined her wounds, a thought crossed his mind. Were these really burns? He noticed her skin showed no sign of inflammation. Pressing a hand to the dark mark, the young man calls upon healing magic. In an instant, a thought flickers through his mind. Perhaps these are old scars lingering beneath the surface. Yet as the magic flows, the marks vanish completely, leaving no trace behind. Astonishment swept over Retta as he struggled to grasp why everyone else's efforts had failed to yield any results. Doubt crept in, casting a shadow over his mind and making him wonder if enough had truly been done to save her. Suddenly, the boy notices the dark patches shrinking once more, the area that had just cleared become shrouded again by those unsettling stains. With his hand pressed to his head, Mr. Tita admitted the truth of the matter. No treatment had ever helped. Gabriel let out a weary sigh, realizing that even she could not grasp the severity of the burns he faced. After a brief pause for thought, Retta confessed that her body had suddenly become engulfed in flames that stubbornly resisted every attempt at healing. No matter how hard she tried, the wounds refused to close. The marks on the skin are no ordinary burns or typical wounds. They clearly reveal the handiwork of something artificial. At that moment, the young man decides to put one particular idea to the test. A magical seal flares to life across his palm. With a swift movement, he sweeps his hand over his face, awakening the detection skill. Instantly, the enigmatic emblem blazes within his eye. Lord Tita's gaze settled on the boy, curiosity prompting him to ask what had made the boy use the detection skill. Redia joined the conversation, explaining that travelers frequently relied on such magic. It was a basic yet essential skill, helping them uncover traps or identify unfamiliar objects. Places where magic gathers most intensely are often illuminated by a blue glow. Objects imbued with blessings, on the other hand, radiate a gentle white light. This effect resembles a kind of aura that reveals itself to anyone who looks closely enough. Valerie's aura glowed with a deep, inky blackness, a telltale sign of a curse. The young man instantly realized he was facing someone afflicted by dark magic. A wave of horror washed over Rita as she recognized the sinister mark upon Valerie. A wave of astonishment washed over Mr. Tito as he struggled to comprehend why such a dreadful fate had befallen her. Meanwhile, Gabriel grew increasingly restless, her fear for Valerie intensifying with every passing moment. Mr. Tito wavered, covering his face with his hand. Doubts swirled through his mind, leaving him at a loss for what to do next. Uncertainty clouded his thoughts completely. Gabriel suggested seeking out the Healers Guild in the capital to hear their professional opinion. Lord Tita nodded in agreement with the young woman, yet hesitation lingered in his eyes. Even the finest healers, he mused privately, might find themselves powerless when faced with a curse of such dreadful strength. Rita's voice abruptly interrupted the conversation, asking Mr. Tito to wait for a moment. The young man seemed to snap out of his thoughts, hastily apologizing to Retta and assuring him that he would certainly repay him for his help. At the sound of suspicion, the young man shook his head and insisted that everyone misunderstood his intentions. He had only recently learned magic and until now had never used it. Rita delivered this explanation in a careful, measured voice. With confidence resonating in his voice, the young man turns to Mr. Tide, asking for permission to attempt lifting the curse. Deeply moved, Mr. Tata grasped Red by the shoulders and asked with eager curiosity if he truly possessed such magic. The boy nodded with quiet confidence. With that confirmation, Mr. Red agreed and encouraged the boy to use his abilities. Reddit spoke gently to Valyria, admitting his uncertainty about whether the spell would help. While waiting for the specialists from the capital, he offered to try easing the girl's suffering. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Tita held each other's hands tightly, hope shining in their eyes as they watched the young man. Arms outstretched, Redis closed his eyes, summoning the spirits of light from the depths of his soul and commanding them to banish the shadowy force. Slowly, his eyes opened as he whispered an incantation meant to lift the curse. Without warning, a massive, radiant magical seal flared to life beneath the girl, while a brilliant sphere began to glow in her hands. At that moment, vivid tongues of flame surged through her imagination. Overcome with fear, the oppressive heat and surrounding darkness brought her to tears. Tears streamed down her cheeks as, from somewhere far away, a voice echoed faintly. Darkness pressed in from every side, muffling even the most familiar sounds, as if the world itself had faded into the background. Time slipped away, losing all meaning for Valyria. No need to measure seconds when eternity seemed to be passing. In her despair, she pleaded with unseen listeners for aid. The unbearable heat sapped away her last reserves of strength. Suddenly, darkness above the flames crackled, splitting apart as if it were shattering. The girl was the first to notice. Cold dread set in as reality resurfaced. Upon waking, The girl shrank back and cried out for her brother. Intense heat surged through her, as if her entire body had been set ablaze. Nearby, Mr. Jeopard shouted that Valyria had finally regained consciousness. Turning to Lady Valyria, Retta assured her that everything was under control, explaining that he was steadily dispelling the curse. Fear seized the young woman as she asked the stranger to reveal himself. In response, the name Dixon was spoken. He admitted he was a healer. The girl's gaze lingered on Titi and Gabriella, who stood side by side, arms wrapped around each other, as they quietly took in the scene unfolding around them. A gentle smile of relief appeared on her face. To Tito's surprise, the dark spots on Valerie's skin began to fade away before his very eyes. At that moment, the girl sat on the bed, clutching Red's clothes tightly in her hands. Nearby, the boy was finishing the incantation. Tears of joy sparkled in Gabriel's eyes as the spots on the little girl's skin gradually faded away. At that moment, Red turned to Mrs. Valyria and urged her not to lose hope, assuring her that he would do everything in his power to help. A fleeting smile lit up the girl's face as she nodded in agreement and vowed to do her best. Meanwhile, the young man continued his incantations without pause. Lady Valyria was just about to address the council when a sudden surge of pain erupted within her, forcing an involuntary cry from her lips. A growing heaviness pressed down on Rita with every passing moment as her mana reserves dwindled at an alarming rate. Doubt crept into her mind, making her wonder if she could truly endure to the end and complete the purification. Without warning, an unseen aura enveloped the young man. The urge to stop lost all power as a crushing sensation swept over him, and the space between him and Valyria blazed with blinding light. The last remnants of magical power flowed into the swirling light, which rose up like a storm and sent hair and clothing whipping around. Lord Tita and Gavril quickly shielded their faces, struggling to guard themselves against the blinding brightness. A brilliant light swept through the room, transforming everything in its path and leaving Titi puzzled by its mysterious origin. As the glow gradually faded, Reddit and Valyria sat quietly on the bed, as if they had always been there. Rita turned to Mrs. Valyria, preparing to speak, but the girl responded first, swiftly assuring her that everything was fine. Exhaustion overtook the young man, causing him to falter and admit he could go no further. In the very next moment, he found himself kneeling at Mrs. Valyria's feet. The group exchanged shy, awkward smiles as the uncomfortable scene unfolded. Tita inquired gently about how the girl was feeling. She softly stroked Red's head and replied with gratitude that she was all right, all because of Mr. Red. Memories wash over Redup as he recalls the moment when nobody explained the necessity of mastering mana within one's own body. The weight of those words lingers, prompting the young man to lose himself in deep contemplation. A powerful gust of wind cleaved the monster in two, a perfect demonstration of the boy's new technique. Necta nodded in approval, her expression calm as she assured him the move had been executed flawlessly. In time, she realized that this sensation resembled the effects of alcohol. A young man needed to master self-control, never allowing his emotions to spill over. Pour too much, and the glass overflows, the drink spills out, and the bottle empties in no time. A smile spread across the boy's face as he finally understood the point the girl was making. Magic stirred to life in Nikdo's hands as she conjured a vision, guiding the boy to realize the truth on his own. Meanwhile, she quietly called back the fire spirits, drawing away their power. A single misstep with magic, she warned, could unleash unspeakable disaster. Without hesitation, the spirits of flame answered her call once more, surging forward to engulf the enemies and transforming the surroundings into a blazing inferno. Terror gripped Red, freezing him to the core. In that moment, Gil fixed his gaze on Naito, his curiosity clear as he wondered whether their true objective was to end both their lives alongside the council, or if the intention was to wipe out every last goblin. After Nukto checked if the boy understood everything, he responded with an easy smile and promised to do his best not to forget her advice. Nikdo nodded with quiet confidence, certain that he would succeed. Red rubbed his forehead, silently wondering if all of this was just a dream. After admitting he had lost control and even blacked out, The boy still struggled to grasp the lessons he had once been taught. Without warning, Mr. Tita greeted him, wishing him a good morning. Settling comfortably into the armchair beside the bed, he became engrossed in his book. The young man then announced that Retta had finally awakened, news that filled Mr. Tita with genuine surprise. Glancing back, the hero spotted Mr. T just as he started to rise, ready to apologize for taking their bed. Tita offered the boy reassurance, gently reminding him that because of his actions, his sister survived. Now both Tita and Rita had already passed away. The boy quietly added that Valyria had been examined for any lingering curses and confirmed that they had truly vanished. The news delighted Rido, filling him with genuine happiness. Without wasting a moment, he asked Mr. Teed where his daughters had gone. The young man explained that Mina and Runa were currently in the bath. Valyria had been so insistent that the girls had no choice but to follow her lead. With a gentle smile for her sister, Gabriel urged Valyria to take care, reminding her that her strength had only just begun to return. Valyria offered heartfelt thanks for the concern and promised to heed her sister's advice. The girls entered the bathroom and couldn't hide their astonishment. Mina, smiling, remarked that the bathtub here was absolutely enormous. A look of confusion crossed Aisha's face as she shook her head, uncertain of her purpose in this bustling room. The crowd pressed in from all sides, and her tasks remained unfinished, leaving her feeling out of place amidst the commotion. Valyria's gaze shifted to Aisha, inquiring whether the rumor was true that she had once traveled with Mr. Rita. With fear barely concealed in her eyes, Aisha responded with a cautious nod. Back when it was only Miss Gabriella, Runa could still endure it. Now, however, Valyria had begun addressing her father by his first name. A sense of unease crept into her heart, an ominous intuition warning that nothing good would come of this. Valyria mentioned how unexpectedly adorable the bat was, and a pleasant warmth filled the air. Rune agreed wholeheartedly. However, before anyone could continue, Aisha abruptly interrupted and asked Valyria about the real reason for gathering everyone together. Rune stiffened, uneasy and wondering why the question had been directed specifically at her. A gentle smile appeared on Valyria's lips as she replied, assuring that she had a compelling reason. Curiosity sparked within her, eager to know what the girls thought about the color red. An unexpected surge of surprise washed over Gabrielle. This was the one thing she had never anticipated. With a hint of embarrassment, Valyria admitted that these were the unmistakable signs of love at first sight. Meanwhile, fury seethed within Rune, growing stronger with every passing moment. Upon meeting Lady Valyria, Runa spoke with confident poise, laying claim to her noble lineage. Certain of her heritage, she held firm to the belief that a descendant of such high birth must never indulge in affection for a commoner, not even if that man happened to be her own father. Valyria assured everyone that everything was fine. Gabriel, wearing a cheerful smile, remarked that with such achievements, even Tita would be willing to let him marry her, but the girl swiftly brought an end to the conversation. With visible anxiety, Runa admitted that such tales were far from rare. Often, a woman would find herself falling for her healer, only to end up suffering because of it. A sudden clarity washed over Mina. She had seen this unfold before, only last time it was about Runa. Rising quickly, the girl fixed Mina with an anxious gaze and demanded to know whose side she stood on. Mina responded with a gentle smile, quietly admitting her loyalty lay with her father. A subtle, knowing smile played on Valyria's lips as she grasped the full meaning without a single word exchanged. Determined to avoid future regrets born of secrecy, she pressed the matter, insisting that now was the moment to share everything about the Red One. Minas recalled the first fact. Their father had always been marked by kindness. Aisha offered a second observation. Retta's gentle nature was apparent even in the past, although he had once been unreliable. Now, however, he seemed to have earned the respect of those around him. Runa ventured a guess about the third fact, admitting she truly knew nothing, and maybe it was something good. Hearing this, a sudden longing stirred within Valyria to become a mother to them. With an outstretched hand, the girl signaled her trust in Mina and Runa. In that moment, Runa recognized within her the spirit of someone daring enough to declare war. Fingers wrapped firmly around Valyria's hand, her companion insisted with remarkable persistence, as if Valyria herself had asked for this. An uneasy laugh slipped from Valyria as she tried to dispel the tension building between them. Lost in thought, Aisha searched her mind, wondering if she had truly understood everything as it was meant. At that same moment, Retta walked alongside Mr. Tita. According to Retta, it was thanks to the owner that she managed to unwind and let go of her worries. Mr. Tita simply laughed, taking pride in his hot springs as a true treasure of the region. Curious, the young man asked if the girls were still in the bathroom. Without wasting a moment, Tita suggested they not let time slip by and invited him for a drink. Retta accepted the offer without hesitation. After a while, two young women appeared at the doorstep and announced to their parents that they had returned home. Tida, Gabriel, and Valerie welcomed them with warm smiles. To everyone's surprise, Valyria suddenly appeared nearby. Her friends froze in shock and immediately began to ask how she managed to recover and whether she was feeling well. Smiling gently, Valyria reassured them that everything was fine now. Just then, the butler gently reminded everyone that the girls should greet the guests before anything else. Two girls approached Red, Mina, and Runa. The blonde introduced herself as Oro Amert, while the dark-haired girl went by the name Nero Amert. Tita clarified for Reddy that the girls standing before her were his daughters. This spring, they had dreamed of opening their own school and had come to this place to gather the experience they would need for their future endeavor. A warm smile spread across Rita's face as she admitted how happy she was to meet the girls. Tade chimed in, his eyes bright, saying how much he loved the school. Suddenly, Gabriel decided it was time to end the pleasantries and suggested everyone move on to dinner. After some time had passed, everyone gathered around the large table. Valerie gently slid a plate of meat toward Mr. Reed, quietly inviting him to taste her cooking. Gratefully, the young man accepted her gesture and thanked her kindly. Hearing Rooney's advice about not eating only meat, the boy smiled warmly and thanked her, promising he would definitely include vegetables in his meals from now on. Valerie suggested that Mr. Rada sip wine while eating dry food to keep his throat from becoming parched. In response, Rada offered Valerie an apology. Fixing his gaze on Mr. Tid, the student quietly wondered how things had ended up this way. Meanwhile, Mr. Tid appeared completely oblivious to everything happening around him. Mina couldn't help but notice how easily they connected, their harmony evident in every exchange. During dinner, Valerie offered a small, apologetic smile before breaking the quiet to address her brother. She needed to discuss a private matter with him. Mr. Tita turned to her, curiosity in his gaze, and gently asked what was on her mind. Valerie confessed that before getting married, she wished to date Rita. With gentle caution, she turned to her brother and quietly asked if he minded her decision. A flash of surprise flickered in Retta's eyes upon hearing the girl's words. At that very moment, Runa sprang up and shot her an angry glare. Inside, a pang of jealousy simmered. Valerie spoke openly and without shame about her feelings, but Runa was determined not to let those confessions stand in her way. With a hint of embarrassment, Runa confessed to Valyria that Rita had already proposed to her, leaving her uncertain if she had understood everything correctly. Shock rippled through Rita as he hurried to clarify, insisting that he had never meant an actual proposal. The arrival of such a charming rival gave Valyria the courage to finally speak up and ask for permission. While Mr. Titus assured everyone he had no objections, Retta's true feelings remained uncertain. With a casual shrug, Retta admitted he knew little about Valyria and doubted he would make much of a friend anyway. Besides, he pointed out, he was already over 30. Tears streamed down Valyria's face as she pleaded for guidance on what to do after Mr. Retta had rejected her. Yet Retta insisted she had misunderstood his intentions. Meanwhile, Runa pointed out that the boy had been with her, but Retta suddenly declared that Runa was, in fact, his daughter. Their conversation was interrupted by Mr. Tita, who suggested that they begin as friends. He asked Rita for her thoughts on the matter. Redis replied that he had no objections to friendship and would even consider it an honor. However, Runa immediately dismissed the idea, saying it was unnecessary. Accepting the offer, Tita entrusts the boy to Valerie's care. Valerie offers no objection and readily agrees to help. At that very moment, a crucial detail resurfaces in Valerie's memory. Gabriel notices the girl's unease and gently speaks to her, curious about what might be troubling her. Valerie hesitates for a moment before she finally confides that a certain idea has crossed her mind. The notion of befriending Retta seemed delightful. Her brother might finally find a companion, and loneliness would no longer linger. Upon hearing this, Mr. Tito couldn't hide his surprise and declared in a booming voice that solitude was never a concern for him. The morning sun gathered everyone outside the house, where heartfelt words of gratitude were spoken to Red for his warm hospitality and the shared dinner. The Amert children bid a fond farewell to Mina, promising that their paths would cross again someday. The scribe followed in their footsteps as the crew set out on their journey. All the while, Runa found his thoughts consumed by the lingering fear of the curse. The ability to heal curses is an extraordinary rarity, even among magic healers. Those few who possess this gift are often regarded as messengers of the divine. Casting such enchantments demands an immense toll of strength from the practitioner. Runa had also heard that erasing a curse completely might take days or even weeks of effort. Even if every resource and prayer had been used, finishing any sooner than half a day would have been impossible. In the worst scenario, nothing would have changed at all. Flickering before the girl's eyes, familiar fireballs burst to life, identical to those that always appeared whenever the red mage cast his spells. Uncertainty gnawed at her as she tried to grasp the true identity of the figure standing before her. The question spun ceaselessly in her mind. Mina turned and leaned toward Runa. She noticed her sister drifting somewhere far away in her thoughts. With a gentle smile, Runa finally gathered herself and admitted that she had just realized how extraordinary their father truly was. A radiant smile lit up Mina's face as she raised her hand slightly, offering her sister cheerful encouragement. The younger girl wholeheartedly agreed. Their father was truly one of a kind. Wrapping her arms around Mina and gently stroking her head, Runa assured her that she was amazing too. Mina burst into laughter, loud and heartfelt, just as her father once did. Watching her with a calm smile, Runa remained composed and tranquil. The image of Redo as a caring and gentle savior remained vivid in her memory. Every detail of that day lingered in her mind. Now, it became clear why even Mrs. Valerie had grown fond of him and had started casting admiring glances in his direction during dinner. 2 days had passed since their return home when a blonde-haired girl appeared unexpectedly at the doorstep. It was Valerie. Wearing a warm smile, she gently inquired if Mr. Redo was available at the moment. Without any warning, the newcomer among Valerie's entourage immediately drew Rune's attention, leaving her momentarily unsettled. Struggling to maintain her composure, Rune turned and, in a firm voice, asked what exactly Mrs. Valerie was doing here. A broader smile blossomed across Valerie's face as she subtly gestured to the side, hinting at something. At that very moment, Mr. Tita entered the room, his arm bandaged and on display. With a calm demeanor, he assured everyone that it was nothing serious, just a minor injury. Once inside the master's chambers, Reda finally managed to heal him. The man, still bewildered, asked how Tita had ended up in such a state. Calmly, Tita explained that he had simply wanted to teach a lesson to the troublemakers who had attacked the healer the previous day. Valyria spins around, taking in every corner of Red's room with keen curiosity. Meanwhile, the healer turns to Tit in surprise, quietly asking if their efforts have uncovered any useful information about the bandits. Tata had barely begun her story when shouts rang out from the first floor. The deep voice of the household's master shattered the quiet, demanding that a doctor be brought to him at once. His words carried a bold and unapologetically blunt tone. Suddenly, Redder sensed an unfamiliar presence seeking him out. In his mind, he wondered about the identity of this odd character with such dreadful manners. Turning to Tita, he mentioned that he needed to step outside for a moment. Down the staircase, Red descended step by step, calling out Riggs's name. Curiosity tugged at the doctor, eager to discover what had transpired while he tended to Mr. Teed. Suddenly, something darted toward him out of nowhere. The doctor managed to dodge just in time, swiftly bending to the side. A glass vessel filled with some kind of liquid hurtled past and shattered against the wall with a crash, spilling its contents across the floor. Rena stared ahead in bewilderment, unable to believe what she was seeing. A group of men blocked the path. The loudest among them jabbed a finger toward the red-haired stranger, his eyes sharp with curiosity as he demanded to know if this was truly the healer. Without wasting another word, he ordered the redhead to come closer and heal him at once. Rada paused in thought, then directly asked why he should obey at all. One of the brash guard's men immediately lost his composure and shouted, ordering Rada not to speak to Munza in such a manner. The owner of the largest trading company, named in honor of the Munza family, studied the healer intently, trying to unravel his true identity. The man hurled accusations of corruption at Munza. Suppressing his fury, Munza clenched his fists and ordered Reddy to begin the treatment without delay. The cost no longer mattered. He was prepared to endure any pain necessary. Renaud strode toward the man, briefly noting that they would discuss payment later. The healer now insisted on examining the wounds the merchant wanted treated. Munza slowly unfastened his cloak. With a swift motion, the man shrugged off his outer garment and tossed it aside. His entire body was marked with dark patches, sparing only his head, shoulders, and neck. To Radette, these looked like the remnants of severe burns. Munza hounded the healer relentlessly, impatience clear in his voice as he revealed that 2 healers from the local guild had already examined him even before he set foot here. Later, he uttered with a hint of irritation that it seemed impossible to find any true professionals in this city. Confidence in Rita's ability to pull through remained steadfast within him. The doctors confirmed that the burns appeared roughly 2 evenings ago, and the merchant's assistant corroborated their account. The incident caught everyone completely off guard. At that moment, the assistant humbly asked Rhonda to help his master. A thoughtful silence settled over Rhonda as he paused, reflecting deeply. It was in this stillness that the true cause of Munza's wounds began to reveal itself to him. A theory Ray once encountered in old books resurfaced in his mind. Chris's banishment spell, when performed correctly, unfolded in exactly this manner. Rita addressed the owner of the trading company, explaining that curses are crafted in such a way that once lifted, they inevitably return to their caster. Munza glanced up, surprise flickering in his eyes. The assistant's angry shouts pierced the air, as Redo's respect had completely vanished. Such treatment from the healer toward the leader was beyond acceptable. Suddenly, an unexpected girl's voice shattered the tense moment.